People who get locked into a vision. All right, that's it, man. That's their drive. That's their passion. Critics don't matter. This don't matter. They're going to do whatever it fucking takes to be the best at what they do.
And this is Dave Tate again with another edition of Table Talk. Today I have Nick Showman with me. I've known Nick for, God, looking at your bio, I think probably almost a decade.
Yeah, right,
close
around
to
10
a decade.
years.
And I'll get into a little bit when I first met you. It was kind of a funny story. On my part, it's a funny story. You may not think it's that funny, but it's funny to me. But before getting into that, I want to go into your credentials, your credibility, why you're able to sit here and have a conversation on strength and conditioning.
Right.
Where you're not super active, on social media and so forth. So you're not a social media guru. So unfortunately, nobody knows who you are.
No,
and,
coaching gets in the way of posting. And
yes. And it was funny when we first started doing this. I have people ask me, get this person on, get this person on, get this person on. I'm like, you guys have no idea how many people I can bring in just from a 2-hour radius of where the company is that actually coach and know what the fuck they're talking about.
Right.
And they may not have, 100,000, 200,000 followers, but they know more than all those people combined, because it's hard to make a good post when you're trying to do it between clients and athletes and training and, being married and having a kid and everything else. So your degree was it's really kind of irrelevant, but I like to put it out there because people should know what career path, I didn't see. Is it exercise science?
It's it's still going on.
Okay.
So I've always been like a part-time student.
Yes.
So that started probably when I started at Denison and has continued on.
Okay.
So then I started a business, which I'm sure detours everything financially and time-wise.
And family.
So, so I still take 1 or 2 classes almost year-round.
And the track is for, what's it for now?
Sport management.
Are you still, are you going to stay on that path? I assume probably now you're going to stay on it just to finish, because you got to be pretty damn close to doing it. But if you were to go back and decide again with the different options, not that you would change your career entirely, but you're going to stay in the same market, would it be sport management, or would you have gone more towards the sciences?
Honestly, now in my position, I think I'd go to psychology, because that's a bigger part of my job than the science is there, but the psychology to get the science applied to our athletes is really, it's a bigger part. Now I have coaches under me, so I have to make sure those coaches, me and the athletes, are all on the same page. So creating systems where we're all on the same page, getting that buy-in. I think sport management and psychology is a minor, or flip that either way. Yeah.
Okay. I would agree with that. And I'm going to make a note to circle back on that. Okay. And you were assistant strength and conditioning coach, I believe, under Watts.
Yep.
At Denison. So you got that. Then you have your own training. Skip forward. There's a lot of other stuff in there. You decide to open your own training center. Somebody asked a question about that, which will come up later. And you've been in business now for
6.5 years.
6.5 years. So you've already crossed the 1-year fail point, 3-year fail point, 5-year fail point. So it's working. You know what I'm saying? It may not be paying the bills the way that you would like it to pay the bills, but
everything takes longer.
Yes,
is what I've learned.
It's going to go real out.
I was talking to my wife the other day. My facility's laid out how I wanted it. Like how it is now, that's exactly how I thought it would be in 15 years.
Yeah.
And, I have people call me and see if I want a bigger building or this or that, and I'm fine.
Yeah, yeah. Well, your place, and you guys should check out his place. It's what's the website? Showman?
Showtimestrength.com.
Showtimestrength.com. Just, Google Google's a great tool. You'll find it. But he's got it laid out. If you look at how he's got it laid out very functionally to run athletes through. So, and it also works if it is Gen Pop.
Right.
But you have more, without, sometimes I say, because I worked Gen Pop for so long, sometimes you're limited because you don't have a lot of machines.
Right.
But you're not really limited. You just can't be lazy.
Right.
And that's what it comes down to. So you have to work a lot of regressions.
Right.
With Gen Pop, where the athletes, hell, you probably got to do that with them now too. And then you're more the lifters, athletes, not lifters, that have been with you longer. Those are the progressions.
Right.
So we'll get into some of the regressions and the progressions, because I think with what they don't teach a lot of in any certification course I ever took, or I mean, exercise science, when I took it, didn't really teach you fucking anything. But progressions are pretty simple. Everybody kind of learns those just from being around meatheads in the gym and so forth. But the regressions become a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, because that's based very individually.
Yes. So you got a kid that can't do a push-up. Okay, have him do a kneeling push-up. What if you can't do that? All right. Well, have him do a reverse band push-up. What if you can't do that? And you got to keep working back. Okay.
Right.
And then you're dealing with psychology. What if the kid's so mentally upset with the fact that he can't do a push-up? Does he need to be doing the push-up?
Right.
Is there other things that you can do to build up that push-up?
Oh, yeah.
And that's the regressive model, which I really didn't know a whole lot of, or I thought I did, until Sheena started working with my son. And it's like, oh my God, I never would have thought that,
Yeah, different perspective gives different avenues sometimes.
Yeah, that just jumping over a line is, the very low end progression of actually being able to do a squat.
Right.
I never thought of that, but it is, especially if they're mentally, they don't want to squat.
Well, the biggest, for that, the push-up example, we use weight. We do dumbbell bench. And I've gotten a lot of shit over that, because I put it out on Twitter and people are like, that is dumb. You should not load an athlete that can't master their body weight. Well, their body weight's heavy, their confidence is low. Give them some weight so they can do the body weight movement. And that's helped us a ton. So.
Cool. And then powerlifting wise, I guess I'll segue back into, now I may have met you at a seminar before I spoke at Mark's Ohio clinic. That I don't really remember too much, but I remember Mark asked me to speak at NSCA Ohio State Clinic, and it was one of those where it was, fuck it, it's an hour, I just wing it, I'm not gonna, I don't ask to be paid for any of the speaking engagements that I do, so I'm not going to say because of that I don't put a lot of work into it. It depends upon how long I'm given,
right?
And you're given a 45-minute time slot. There's really not a whole lot that you can cover, and then the importance of what it was. And I believe that was one of the first times it was a full lecture just on my live, learn, pass on type thing, and which. When it was over with, I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, oh, that was really fucking, this is probably the best one I ever fucking did. I'm never going to practice again. I'm just going to wing them all, and this went well. Then Mark introduced me to you, and it was on this, because it was a theater type seating, but it was, an upper seating. So it was like midway on the stairs, and he introduced me to you, and it's like, yeah, good to meet you, same stuff that pretty much with everybody. And then he said, Nick puts on a lot of natural bodybuilding shows. And I just checked out. Like, okay, nice to meet you. It's good. Best of luck to you. Made some small talk. Just checked out. Like, okay, this is not my domain here. This is not my. Not that there's anything wrong with that in any way whatsoever.
It's a different world.
It is a completely different world, and I have all types of respect for bodybuilding, natural, whatever it is. But it was just weird as fuck because you're around, for me, I hadn't been around bodybuilding for shit at that point decades, except for Mike Francis coming into the Westside for a small period of time when he was in there. And I was like, oh, wow, I don't know if I got anything to talk to him about. This is like, is he like a bodybuilder? I mean, is he a natural bodybuilder? And, but that's how you were paying your bills.
Yeah.
Because we did talk for a little bit. And I asked him, how's it going? How do you run them? Is there really, I mean, this is how naive I was. Is like, is there really a market for that? And like, oh yeah, there's a bigger market for that than there is for the regular bodybuilding. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, what? Like, how out of touch am I right now? And that's how you were getting through school.
That paid for my classes. That paid for me. That allowed me to start personal training as my main job.
Yes.
So technically, I had 2 jobs. I was running a business and working for someone. But I mean, there was 2 shows a year. It wasn't a huge time suck. But
no, but if those 2 shows a year, and this is where I'm kind of going with this, is that my initial reaction was, okay, whatever. We talked about it. Then my other reaction was, this guy's kind of following in the same footsteps that I did, just in a different way. Is like trying to put all this shit together in the most economical way to be able to pay for a school, and training. I don't know how big of a part of your life it was at that time. I don't think it was as big.
It was, but I was probably in a funk then. I tore my pec off, and I was like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that, because we talked about that.
That was how I met Chuck the first time.
Yeah, because I gave you a lot of advice I could never give somebody online, just because I'm not a physical therapist or a doctor. But if I know somebody that knows you, like Mark, and they ask me a question, I'll tell you everything that I did, to be able to help that. But I left thinking, man, this is the kind of the same path, and JL kind of followed the same.
Right.
I mean, it's weird that everybody's journey is a little bit different, but there's a lot of similarities, within the journey, to be able to say kind of definitively that if you're going through college and you got to pay for it, and you're not comfortable with the loans, you don't want to, for whatever reason, you're going to be working
a
lot of jobs. And the ones that become, I don't want to say more creative in their ability, but the ones that find the jobs that are hard work in shorter periods of time that have a bigger output. All right. For me, it was kind of going from bouncing in a college bar for $25 a night to bouncing in Detroit strip clubs for a hell of a lot more than $25 a night. So having to work 4 nights a week to having to work really once every 2 weeks if I really had to still be able to pay for everything. And then finding your path on how to do that. Those are the ones that end up owning places like The Spot, Showtime, and, different businesses like that, because you're practicing a business mindset, younger, where from the outside looking in, it's like, oh, he just happened to find, these shows and, was able to make enough money to pay for his college, and he only had to work 4 days a week, but they don't understand everything that goes into putting a show together.
That was probably the best lesson. That business, I'll never go back to it. I haven't been to a bodybuilding show since.
Yeah.
But the lesson, it makes my gym that much easier on like just how to streamline everything. Now, the first few shows were a disaster because I had no help, but each show got better, and I got better. I learned early on, get better people around you. And once I did that, by the end, I wasn't doing anything. They were, I did the marketing and all that, but then they came in and handled the day.
I don't know if I would agree with your statement of I wasn't doing anything, because it's a leadership role.
Right.
And it's the hardest skill to master. And it changes. It changes with employees, it changes with time, it changes with demographics. It's a constant evolving type of process. I don't know if you were powerlifting at that time. Were you?
I think so. Watts was great at letting us fail, like right in front of him.
Yeah.
Like he'd be like, hey, how are you setting your program up? And we'd tell him, and he'd just go, have you thought about this? And we'd blow it off. And because he was lifting but not competing or anything, so he really didn't care. And then we'd mess up and go, hey, what happened here? Why did we not get a PR? And then he would backtrack us and walk us back through. So we were, but I didn't have anyone really help me in a competitive sense. So for probably 3 or 4 years, my numbers barely moved. And that's where, when I started getting around people who had been around, that helped a ton.
Yeah. Well, those people that you got around, Bayless.
Yeah, Josh.
Josh and those guys, they got around. You know what I'm saying? They were
right
for real getting around, which makes all the difference.
Right.
Until you learn how to kind of piece the things together in your head. And then how long did it take you until you started making trips to train at Westside? Because I know there was a history before you of people from Newark coming in, because Joe did when I was there, Josh did when I was there, and I never realized how far the commute was until I had to drive out there to do that seminar for Mark. I'm like, fuck, man, this is a commute, man. This is no joke.
They did that 4 times a week.
4 times a week. And it's, you know, when you're in there, you know, training, you don't think about, you know, chicken hawks driving 3 hours, and I mean, you know it, but you just really don't think about it until you make the drive. And you're like, whoa, wow, fuck. Would I do this? You know, and you start asking yourself that. And
Chicken Hawk was there today. I mean, it's so how did I get to Westside? Or
well, how long did it take?
I think I've been there 4 or 5 years now.
So 4 or 5 years. So then how did that process?
They started coming to some of our meets that we run. We run 2 to 3 meets, and that's when I realized, like, oh shit, we got to step our meets up a little bit, because they were, I don't want to say bad meets, but they are, you know, very basic gym meets. And then so we started getting better equipment, better benches, better bars, plates, so on. But at one of the earlier ones, it was the first or second time Lou brought people out, and he's like, I still lifted at our meets because they were small enough I could do that. And had a whatever meet. I think I did all right. Ended up deadlifting 600 for the first time. And it was like a second attempt. No, it was my opener. I don't know. It was a PR.
Yeah.
Pull it. It looked like 135. I'm like, yes, got that weight, finally. And Josh took me up 20 or 25 pounds, and it did not budge. I mean, I thought he added 100 pounds. And I'm like, well, what the fuck was that? And he's like pissed. He's like, are you going to try? Like, you have to try. I'm like, I don't know. Gravity's.
Yeah, sucks.
Yeah. So I tried it again, and it was, I don't even think I got the slack out. And at that point, Josh just like, he just turned around and walked away.
Yeah.
And so I went up to Lou after, and I was like, hey, thanks for bringing some guys out. I was like, I'm sure you weren't paying attention, but you were in the front row when I was deadlifting. What the fuck? How can I pull 600 with ease and 625 doesn't even budge? And I'll never forget this, because this was the first time I really talked to him, and I was like, he is loony. And he goes, well, you can deadlift 700 right now. And I'm like, well, there's no way. I can't budge 625. And he's like, oh, well, we train on Mondays. Why don't you come up? And I don't think he ever meant, like, for me to stay. I think, and then it just...
And you still don't know that to this day after being there for 4 years.
Yeah, I think it was come out, you know, deadlift a few times with us. And but I just said, all right, well, I'm going on vacation like next week or something. I'll get a hold of Tom and I'll come out. And I think it was within a year I pulled 700. And then 2 meets ago I pulled 760. So being there, it's been up 160 pounds.
Yeah.
So
with I may as well address this now, because there were questions that came in about this in regards to, you know, Nick training at Westside, because he is training there now, and he just squatted there before he came out here. Now, there are a lot of questions that came in that were asking about how's Westside training now, and other such questions like that. where we're not going to go into that, and there's a couple reasons why we're not going to go into that. The first one is Westside has a Conjugate club, so they currently have a paywall, so, and Nick is part of the morning crew. It's, to the best of my knowledge right now, there is just one crew, which is the morning crew, and he is part of that crew, which falls within the paywall. And I know that, I've been a huge proponent of the Live, Learn, Pass On, and this came a lot from Louis and people. There were many people before him as well that instilled that into me. But what I don't think people understand about the landscape now compared to the landscape 10 years ago is e-commerce retail it's a bitch, so it's kind of taken a hit, by more competition, for one thing. I mean, that's really the biggest reason is the market might be bigger, right? But so the competitors are huge, so, I mean, Amazon alone, I mean, it's a competitor for everybody for every reason. And then, there's others that are just in this strength space that make the whole retail end a lot harder, for all of us. And Louis is one that, from my past interactions with him, because he helped basically fund by consignment, Elite FTS when we first started, is not a big fan of retail to begin with. So hated that shit. So that's why we ended up with it. Is Tracy was complaining about her job. I was doing consulting and personal training and stuff like that. And Louis was just sick of and tired of the man arrays and yoke bars, and he just wanted to sell the equipment and the videos and fuck everything else, because he was doing it out of his home. So he said, you guys sell it. I'm like, oh fuck, okay, I guess we can do this. And we can't buy it because we don't have any money. Nah, you just take it, you pay us back. When you sell it, you pay us back, on consignment. So I'm forever indebted to him for many reasons. That's one of them. And it took us a while to be able to pay it back, but that was kind of that space back then. And then over a period of time, he got back into the retail space, which created some confusion between, Elite FTS and Westside Barbell. And we had to kind of work together and apart in different ways, because people would call me asking, is Louis there? And they call Wes, Louis, is Dave there? I'm like, this is kind of fucked up to kind of divide that. And now we're in a landscape to where Louis' greatest asset is content. Mm-hmm. And when you're in the position that he's in, where he's a guru, he's
an actual guru,
fucking actual guru. I mean, he's a legend. He's a guru. I mean, it's anybody to say otherwise is completely out of their fucking mind. You can not like the guy, but you can't dismiss what he's done and what he knows, and he should be able to monetize, the content, because he's put so many people on the map that so many don't even realize. I maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't, but I don't think you would know who Dave Tate was if it wasn't for Louis Simmons. You probably wouldn't know who J.L. Holdsworth was. You probably wouldn't know who Jim Wendler. I mean, it's Mark Bell, Matt Winnie. I can keep going on and on and on. And each one of these guys can get mad, if they want to. That's their right to be able to get mad. I'm just stating what I believe is fact. But I'll also put out there that, just having somebody put you on the map doesn't get you to any destination. It just gets you known. They still had still had to work their asses off far harder and more than anybody else. So that's why we're going to pivot, on a lot of what's Westside currently doing questions. I'm not going to ask Nick, what's the Circumax phase look like now? I'm not going to ask him, what is the workload of the, reverse hypers and include ham raises, and how exactly do you integrate in the GPP, and when do you integrate in the GPP with Westside? Okay. Now we may have conversations about, fucked up stories that, things that he can tell that aren't going to like throw anybody under the bus for any reason. We can get into some conversations about that, some of the stuff that happened when I was there and that kind of thing. But the principles we will discuss, because he uses the principles, with his athletes. He uses the principles with his own. He's got a training crew out. It is his own place.
Yep.
But by no means confuse what he's saying with what's being done at Westside. All right. So the way that I've kind of addressed this myself is I have a very strong bias towards conjugate training, and I get to embrace it today. So fuck you guys, so I can roll down that road full steam. But I am biased. But I also, if something is going to work better for somebody, I will use whatever that is in a heartbeat, because the overall objective is that's the fastest way I know to get that person from point A to point B. Now, if I was speaking for other people, which I don't do, Louis may not do that because he knows how to use the conjugate method to get anybody from point A to point B.
Yeah, he knows which variable needs manipulated on an individual basis, whereas I don't. You might not for a certain population, I might not, so forth.
Yes, and if I don't, I have no problem having to pivot that population to a linear model or to a block model, because I know all three models very well, but I'm certainly biased towards one. Where when you're the master of one model, you don't need to pivot to a different model. It's just, I don't know that model to the same degree. Nobody does, what Louis does, because he's continuously learning. If he would have stopped learning 20 years ago,
Westside would have stopped.
Well, some of us could have caught up, but you can't catch up with somebody that's running faster than you to begin with, and continues to keep learning each day. Yeah. So that's going to kind of be where we are, with that. And with that in mind as well, we could sit here and talk about what he's doing for his upcoming meet, which I think you got a meet not too far out.
Yeah. York, the IPA Nationals.
Yeah. And it's not going to apply to you guys at all. I mean, it would apply to like 0.5% that it would actually benefit.
If you're a 308 wearing equipment and
training Westside for 4 years, are already accommodated to, the training cycles and so forth, because it all builds, it all builds on itself. So that's kind of where we're going to stand and where we're going to stay on that aspect. I'm going to give, Nick the right, because, he knows better than what I do, because he's in there once a week, you said, maybe twice a week sometimes. For the past 4 years, I haven't been. So I'm going to give him the right to pivot away from whatever he wants. And I'll just re-ask the question to a different population that he works with, because he's working with actually 3 distinct populations, because you are working. I mean, you are in Westside and you are coaching. At least I hope to God you are. He teaches you to cue and coach everybody else that's there, and if you're not, I'm going to tell you right now, you're doing yourself a huge fucking disservice.
The gym's full of lifters, but it's also full of coaches.
Yes. And those that just go there to lift but don't go there to become coaches should not be there. That's just my statement as an alumni, looking back and on the people there, because that's not, it's a breeding ground, for people that when they leave, if they survive, and people survive now more so than what they did when I was there, are going to be able to work with a whole hell of a lot of other people to be able to help them. But if they just are dead weight, just fuck it, all I want to do is lift, tell me what to do. That shit wouldn't have fly. It wouldn't have gone when I was there. It's like, there's the door, see you later.
And that's the biggest thing we try to tell the lifters at our gym, whether they're a girl. Like, we have a kid, he squatted just under 700 in high school in a meet. Strong kid. But, they need to know what we know so they can help everyone else. And that's because I can't coach everyone in our training group. Mm-hmm. I can't watch every rep. I can't watch every set, especially on days I train at the gym. Mm-hmm. So, my wife trains with us. She's gotten better. Some of the newer girls, like that high school kid, he's not in high school now, but like he knows what to look for. He's cueing me, but that's what I want.
Yeah, and it's your training. I was going through your Instagram real quick. So you're benching at your own place. Mm-hmm. So when you're benching, you got 1, 2, 3. There's 4 sets of eyes that are on you. 3 of those sets of eyes I know have over 20 years experience. So there's 60 years of experience watching you try to figure out what the hell you need to do in this shirt. Yeah. Just for the gear, and there's those eyes also processing from a weak point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they understand so where I generally struggle.
Yeah.
So that's an easy area to pick up on each lift and, dissect stuff from there. Things that, somebody might mess up commonly in a shirt. Watch for that stuff. Hand position, the 1,000 things that can go wrong benching 600 and 700 pounds. Mm-hmm. So we have, what is that, 20 eyes watching every rep. That makes a huge difference compared to training with one person. Like, imagine getting a handout and that's it.
Yeah. Now I have to ask one question, which is, it's Westside related, but I think this is a safe question. That there's been, probably 10 people that I know of that before they decided to go start training at Westside, got a hold of me and sat down with them and basically said, here's what to expect. Mm-hmm. This AJ was one of them. I don't want to name all of them, but there's a lot of them. You were one of them. Out of all the things that we talked about, how many of those things have been true?
Well, first off, Josh and Tim Harold, I told them, I said, hey, I'm going to go up to Westside. Lou invited me up to train on Mondays. And like, Josh is like, he's very, like, Josh is, when, people who have helped me, Josh and Lou and Joe, and Josh just goes, don't embarrass me. I'm like, oh, okay. And that was he said, do whatever he says. Don't embarrass me. And Tim Harold goes, all right, when you're driving over there, there's a Speedway or a Duke station on Wilson Road. When you feel like you got to shit your pants, that's where you go. It's pretty clean. And I'm like, is he serious? And driving over there the first time, I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Mm-hmm. I was like, now I know what he's talking about. Mm-hmm. And he goes, I had that for 2 years.
That's fucked up. That's fucked up. I didn't think about those. I never had any shit like that. To me, it was just the stuff that I talked to you about, which was the dealing with the environment, the environmental factors,
there was that, but
of how it works.
I think Josh had talked to me a lot about that before, just from his experience and, Joe's experience. So I had an idea of what to expect, but not, they didn't go into detail. I think he wanted me to go in there, and I'm sure he assumed I'd just get kicked out. And, so.
Yeah. Interesting. Now with, I don't know which way I want to go here. I think I want to go towards the gym aspect.
The business stuff.
Well, why did you decide to set up a training center? It is a training center. It's not, I wouldn't call it so much a gym. I think there's a difference between the two, so I guess I should define that first. A gym's just kind of like an open membership. You have somebody working the front counter, people come in, do whatever they want to do. Maybe you have contract personal trainers that you charge so much per month to train clients, and that's about it.
Right.
A training center may still have that as an option, or I don't think they should, but a lot do. And then a training center is going to be something that's more structured around training athletes, groups of athletes to become better, stronger, and better at what they do. And typically they're going to have boot camps and stuff like that to be able to take
the supplement,
the boot camps or the Gen Pop type thing. So why did you decide that? And were you already doing it someplace else first?
Right. So I was still coaching at Denison very sporadically because my clientele load was pretty heavy. And, but it was a speed and agility facility. Like that was the main focus. But over time I'd built up a good client base. And, JL was still early in the spot and I was talking with him a lot. And I was watching what was going on at Denison, and I just the speed and agility facility, when I went there, I was like, all right, I'm all in. I'm a strength guy, but I can buy into your model. Like, you're giving me an opportunity, I buy in. Then after a while, I started being like, okay, we're going to strength train some of these people some more. So I started getting some private clients that I had full control over their programming, and those kids started doing really well. And then my deciding thing, we had the data for the speed and agility only and then the strength training. I met with them, and I have no issues with the job. It was the best first job I could have had. And I just said, the data's not lining up. We have this progress from the kids I'm having get stronger, and this progress from speed and agility, and we need to progress, and something needs to happen. I had a really good group. I mean, those kids, like the one girl, she's the reason I'm in softball. Like, I'm heavy into softball right now, and she got pitcher of the year in the state of Ohio, won a state title, and got a full ride to Louisville that year. So, and I told my wife, I said, I'm either going to buy the business or move to California with her. And because the physical therapy clinic she worked at was talking about, maybe adding on a section for training. And they weren't quite ready to do that. And I said, I'm either buying the business, moving, or doing my own thing. But something had to change. And I mean, I was only 23, 24. So it was, you get to stages where you're like, I need to do something else. Professionally, I can't stop here. I can't. And so yeah, I mean, it was like a 2-week idea, 3-week idea. It was not a big, maybe that's a bad way of going about it, but from the time I had the idea to when I got the keys to the building, it was like 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Had a business plan put together, and one of my clients' parents looked over it, and he's like, yeah, I mean, whatever. It's a gym, so try it, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But he's like that client. He trains with me now. His wife trains with me, and any business questions I have, I refer to him. Like, I can call him. Some of my clients have been my biggest assets, inside and outside the gym. So that's been really great, and a lot of those kids that I trained then, I still train or keep in contact with. So that was 6.5 years ago. Yeah.
Now, are you open all day?
No, okay. It's all, we train some adults in the morning. Like, we open at 5 and have stuff till about 10 or 11. And then, we're closed till about 3. So then, like, 3 to 8, 3 to 9 p.m. And this is the time of year where it's starting to, the 3 to 8 time slots are jam packed. So
nothing's going on in the gym until 3. So it's just
maybe sporadically, like one-on-one training, stuff like that, small groups, but not. That's when I try to do all the business stuff.
Okay.
And have my other coaches come in for meetings and, develop from there.
Your own training, I assume, falls within that time.
Sometimes, like Friday, like today I trained at Westside. Sundays we bench at my gym. And then sometimes I have to run groups Monday, Wednesday. So, but generally, yeah, I'm running groups 3 to 8 p.m. every day.
Okay. So when you What time would you, I mean, when you own your own business, this is a really hard question to answer because you're going to see why in a minute. What time do you start work each day?
I wake up at 4, and that's not like, I'm not a fitness warrior.
Yeah.
Like, but I wake up at 4 because that gives me my time to gather my thoughts, and I'm in there by 6.
Okay, so you're in there at 6, and then what time do you get home?
8:39.
Okay, could be worse.
It could be worse.
It could be worse.
But a large part of that is when I opened, my wife took a job. She finished her doctoral program in physical therapy, and in Pennsylvania and Ohio, the only jobs needed more experience, like 2 years experience after your doctorate. So she got a job with a facility she did a rotation at in California. So she's like, I got to take this job because I have to have a job. I have a doctoral degree. So the first 2 years I had the gym, she lived out there. Had she never moved back, I don't think, I'd probably sleep in my office. But when she moved back, she's like, we are married. Like, we're getting married.
Yeah.
Like, and thank God, because they probably saved me. So, I try to be home at a reasonable time. That way, like, because I'm gone before she wakes up, and then I get home after she's home. So I still try to have an hour and a half of us time.
Yeah.
We don't have kids yet, so we have a dog.
Yeah. Okay. So you're, in a way, because when I was transitioning out of the personal training and into Elite FTS, there was, slowly taking my training hours down while I was bringing the work hours up. But I mean, the work hours you're still, I mean, if you get a text or an email and it's 11 o'clock at night and it's from a client, you're still answering it.
Correct.
So you're essentially working 24/7.
Yeah.
Anybody that owns a business knows this. You can do and turn your phone upside down and turn it off. I'm disconnected right now, right? So I'm not connected, I'm connected to you, but still working.
Right.
It's just different type of work, that's going on. So with with your going to Westside on Friday, the added benefit of that is from the time that you leave the house, you're mentally getting prepared because it's dynamic day, which is the hardest day. It was always the hardest day of the week for me.
Oh, yeah.
So it's the hardest day of the week. So it's mentally you need to be prepared before you walk in the gym, not get in the gym and be prepared when you're set. I mean, you got to walk in a different person. I had to walk in a different person. And that was my break in a way.
That's my break from reality.
From life, and I was able to go and do that. And then I had to come back to earth, which was my drive back.
Yeah.
Because it took me a while to get out of one mind mode into a mind mode that could even deal with clients, especially Gen Pop clients. You
right.
Go from, you go from one vastly different environment to another, and happens too fast. What's acceptable in one place is not really acceptable in another place.
Right.
And you're like, oh shit, that didn't just happen. And yes, it did. I'm like, oh fuck, and you kind of rotate it back and forth. But that was my break to where, it finally got to a point to where Fridays were just Elite FTS, which was fucking awesome. Then it got to a point where it was no more clients, it was just Elite FTS, and where I ran into issues because I wasn't making any money, so where I ran into the issue was we trained at 8 at the time, and I wouldn't get back till 10:30 would be the time I get back to work. So my work day at work didn't start till 10:30.
Right.
And then it's retail, so we would close at 5. Then I would do all my work afterwards, which was later. But my time that I could actually interact, engage, and be with people on the phone was very restrictive because of the Westside and the time being there, which did play some role into why it was time for me to go. The bigger role was I was fucked up and couldn't lift anymore or grab a bar. But it may have happened anyhow a year later just because of that, you know, the business, I had to make money, you know, I had to at least break even, you know, and find a way to be able to move it forward. So the balance was really fucked. You know, for me, it was one of the regrets that I had. So, because I was very unbalanced, you know, because powerlifting was everything.
It's hard to be balanced when you're running a business, and even at the end for you, you probably knew you weren't competing at that high level, but you still want to push to that level. I
don't believe balance exists, for one thing. So that's kind of my looking back takeaway of the whole thing is there is no fucking such thing as balance. There's just being in the moment that you're in to the maximum that you can be. You know, so being in this podcast to the maximum I can be is the best thing I can do. Right. That's the best balance that I can do, because if I'm thinking about work or I'm thinking about training, then I'm not here and I'm not maximizing this balance. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Or if you're in the gym and you're thinking about all this other shit, you're not going to have a good training session. It's not balanced, right? So if you're with a significant other and you're actually with them, right, during that hour that you said that you have, and you're actually with them, that hour that you're actually paying attention, you're not texting, you're not, you know, talking about training all the fucking time and all this other stuff, that means more, and it carries over more to where they're like, yeah, it's time for you. You got to go. Right. You got to go train, you know, and it's not a problem, you know, where when they're like, yo, you got to train again and all this other stuff, I think you need to check you need to check your balance. Right. Not on how much you're training, but check your balance on how present you are in each moment that you're in, because that fixes 90% of all those issues. Because if I was texting and doing all kinds of other shit during this podcast, you'd be thinking, what the fuck? Right. You know, you wouldn't be engaged. You wouldn't want to talk. You'd be like, what the you know, and it's the same thing. But I had to, when you're moving from one sector, I guess is what a role. That's a better word, a role. When you're moving from one role to the other fast, that's fucking hard.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, my wife actually got me to go back to Westside because I was going. It's easy for me to be there during the school year, but then once summer hits, I would usually, like the first 2 years or 3 years, I took summers off because college kids are home, kids train in the morning. And my wife and Luke Edwards were actually the ones that got me back because my training just went terrible. And that wasn't, you know, you talked about balance or lack of. My training wasn't good. Everything was stalling, so then I was becoming an ass to be around because I wasn't getting my only time. And it's still, when I train at my gym, there's still times I'm like, fuck, trash can's full. Like, you still see stuff, or somebody just happens to walk in. Like, I try to lock the doors when I train. Yeah. That way, like, I have that hour, whatever, to train. Westside's not my gym. Yeah. I go in, I help, I make sure everything's picked up, but if somebody walks in, they don't want to talk to me. So that is the added bonus. And like you said, it's an hour for me there and an hour back. So I get that mentally prepared and that cool down on the way home. So, but yeah, my wife was the one that said, I think you need to call Lou or call someone and see, like, go back.
Oh yeah. Cause I mean, your significant other is the one that pays the biggest price. Right. You know, people like to talk about all the sacrifices they make, but they don't realize they're not the ones making the sacrifice. The sacrifice is being made by the other people in your life. Right. For you to do what you do. And then what sacrifices are you making for them to do what they do? And I mean, I can go down a whole shit show with that whole thing. But we'll pivot off of that and get to, there's a lot of principles that let's just say conjugate. I don't even want to say that. Conjugate-based applications. Let's put it that way. Because a box squat's not conjugate. Like, box squat is a fucking exercise that can be used in block. It can be used in conjugate. It can be used in linear. It can be used, you know, in anywhere. But there's a lot of things that are sewn together or are known to be associated with conjugate. Like, I used to, when I was sponsoring lifters, and still do now, but this doesn't happen anymore, but in the earlier years when I was sponsoring lifters. Like, oh yeah, I train Westside. Okay. All right. Then you find out all they do is fucking board press. You know, everything else is linear periodization.
Right.
But they board press, but that they think that's Westside.
Right.
You know, or they, you know, box squat, and that's Westside. But everything else they do is
it's still a linear model.
It's just block or some other style of training, so it's not really Westside. But there's a lot of things that are sewn together with Westside, which wouldn't really be Conjugate, and that you're implementing with your athletes,
right?
And even Gen Pop, you know. So let's just knock a few off. So we'll start with the box squat. Do you use the box squat with with everybody in the gym, or the majority? I understand. Let's forget about the outliers. Okay. There's some outliers that are just pains in the asses that aren't going to do the box no matter what, and it's easier just to say fuck it, I don't want to deal with it, let them free squat, so you can put more focus on those people that do care. Those are outliers,
right? But
they do occur. Like if you're going to be in this, have a training center and be training people, you are going to have people,
right,
that you're going to have to compromise little things like that on.
Yeah.
But essentially, do you box squat everybody?
Yeah, and that's how. Like our young kids, like young, like 10 years old, that's pretty much all they'll do. They'll free squat every now and then, but, you know, and I'll let Lou talk about the technical benefits of box squatting. There's all these performance benefits, but I even told him I don't care about those. I care that I get each rep's a little bit longer because they're, you know, sitting on the box. So it's easier to coach. Depth, if you've ever been in a high school weight room, like on test day, everyone's warm-ups are good, then they get heavier and higher. If they're sitting on the same box, I know where they're squatting to every rep.
And when you go to retest them, you know exactly if they're better or not.
Right. So it's, I mean, they're not sore. Our softball players and baseball players, that's our two biggest sports. I'd say they play 13 months a year now. I mean, it's non-stop. So if they're sore for a weekend tournament, like there's a big tournament in Columbus this weekend, they can't play. If they can't play, they can't get recruited. If they can't get recruited, guess who's an ass? So, but our kids, you know, they will free squat occasionally. I don't want to say we always only box squat, but our teaching tool in our building block base is a box squat.
One of the things that I love the box for is, and I've written articles of 20 reasons. I think I even might have one of 100 reasons why you should box squat. But you can stop them in the bottom. So when you're teaching the lift, because you're talking about teaching the lift. Right. When you're teaching a squat, you know, albeit if they're going to be, and keep in mind, I'm going to put this thing out here too, because people just don't fucking listen. So I'm going to put this out here so people can fucking listen and they understand and pay attention. So the conjugate people, the people that don't like conjugate, just fucking listen for a minute. Just give me 2 fucking minutes. There's only like 700 multiply lifters this year. Go to openpowerlifting.org, pick multiply, pick the United States, and look at how many there are. There's like 700. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, fuck it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's 900, but there's not a fucking lot. There's like 80 or 120,000 total lifters. Okay, so conjugate only works for multiply lifters. It's a real, and okay, and this today. Okay, this is just talking today. Now let's go back to when I was competing. You know, 20% of the sport was multiply. All the rest was it was single ply. Right. You know, the big federations, the USAPL or the ADFPA before that. You know, the USPF, you know, when you added up the APF and the IPA, which were about the only two multiply, they made up about 20% of the sport. So maybe 4,000 lifters. Okay, so in the history, 4,000 total lifters. And I'll guarantee back at that time, not all 4,000 of those were fucking training conjugate. No. Half the people fucking hated Louis. Right. All right, still do. Half the people hate him, half the people like him. Actually, more people may hate him than like him. I don't know, but make it easy. Draw it down the middle. 2,000 people, fucking conjugate, at its backs, you know, at its highest growth, right? And now, like 900. And I'll guarantee how those 900, not all of them are training Conjugate.
No.
Guarantee. So cut it in half again. So 450. Okay. Conjugate only works for multiply lifters. So it's pretty fucking popular for only being 2,000 lifters using it at its height,
right,
and only 450 using it today. That's bullshit.
Right.
All right. What they're not counting, or it doesn't work for raw lifters. All right. I don't see a lot of college universities or pro teams wearing fucking Velcro canvas squat suits when they're in the gym training.
No.
But even if they did, they don't have the time because they only have 45 minutes to train or an hour to train. Yes. It takes you that long to put your fucking suit on. Or actually, they're just your briefs. You know,
knee wraps and
yes. So the minority. Here's the point. The minority of the people who actually train Conjugate, the minority are multiply lifters, not the majority.
Yeah.
All right. So if you're going to apply rules of bullshit, apply the rules of bullshit across the board, and let's also apply it to linear periodization or block periodization, and let's see if those same rules apply. You know, right. And you know they don't. So anyhow, that's my little rant about that.
I just think in the last few years, it seems like Conjugate, it's definitely gained popularity, but I think with the popularity came a blurred understanding of what it is.
No, it's, oh man, you're gonna get me fucking going.
You're like fucking Josh.
Yeah, I mean it's become a fucking clickbait tool. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's okay, I'm going to do X Conjugate. And then you go look at it and like, what the fuck here is Conjugate? You do understand the word Conjugate means to couple.
Right.
Go look in there's nothing fucking couple. You know, fuck it, I'm not going to go.
Training, different.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's nothing here, you know, that's even Conjugate. All right, and there's nothing there that's even Westside. So, and Westside is a form of Conjugate. I'm not saying that there's not other forms of Conjugate. There are, but look and see what Conjugate training is and see if those other forms fit. All right, and typically they don't. So they don't fit, you know, kind of what's defined in there. So anyhow, that's my rant with that. Going back to the fucking box squat. When you teach that, just having that ability for, I used it with my personal training clients years ago, to be able to have them stop and make that correction in the bottom, because they're either I didn't even know what a butt wink was until like 5 years ago.
Yeah,
I never had anybody do it.
Everyone had it five to maybe up to a couple years ago. Now everyone's butt wink's gone.
Yeah, I never fucking knew what it even was. You know, I never saw it before. I never had it because I could stop them. You know, like sit, stop. Mm-hmm. Okay, from this position, you know, your knees need to be a little bit more out. Your spine needs to be, you know, neutral. Or, you know, verbal cues are a weird thing, you know, because it's whatever works is the kind of how I'll say that. I may tell somebody to arch their back, but they're already in an anterior pelvic tilt. So when they arch, they become neutral.
Right.
All right. So it doesn't mean I'm telling them to go into a posterior, you know, pelvic tilt. It's just that's what makes them be neutral. Mm-hmm. All right. So I can say, you know, many, many years ago, a lot of cues when they were written became misinterpreted, you know, because they were written and whatever worked for one population, where I would tell people, you know, push your belly against your belt. All right. But yet when we were in the gym, we were making sure, you know, the sides are tight, the back was tight. Louis could break people's fingers with his obliques. Mm-hmm. So it was, you know, 360 around the belt, but that's the cue that we used in the gym that worked. It's the cue that I would use in seminars, and it worked a lot of the time. But
not always.
Not always. Sometimes I had to get in there and make sure it was 360. But when I wrote it, you know, I didn't see that people were going to walk around acting like they're showing everybody how fat they are with having a beer gut. And it's like, no, that's kind of not the point. But I found from the teaching aspect, the same way that you did, that it's far superior. And then once I can get that fixed, then I can pull it out if I want. You know, and put it back in, and that's keeping all the other benefits, like you said, aside. You know, there's you know,
there's performance benefits, but
performance benefits, and how much work you're going to put on the posterior chain. You can put more. I mean, there's so many reasons why.
You can sit back further, so you're recruiting more hamstring, more glute. Like we had a girl, D1 athlete, came to us, and she's going into her junior year. She hadn't squatted in 2 years. She did a goblet squat. And I'm like, so you don't, do you have a program that you've been following? So I always like to look at the program, communicate with their coaches, and so forth. She's like, no, not really. Oh, okay. But they just told her, you can't squat with a barbell. So I'm like, all right. So I pull her aside. We work. Within 20 minutes, she was squatting 135 for sets of 3. It was off a box. Mm-hmm. And we started a high box and pulled the mat, every so reps. And I was like, you can squat fine. It's just, you got to break something down. Mm-hmm. So we broke her down and met her where she was currently at and fixed it from there.
What is the, from a squatting standpoint / box squat standpoint, what's the number one mistake that you see with the kids that you're working with your population? Their number one breakdown, where they fuck up the most.
I'd say either losing tightness about 1.5 inches off the box, or actually I'd just say that.
How do you fix it?
Start with a add mat. Oh,
right. So you're talking about falling. So sit, fall.
Yeah.
Okay.
That and you just hear them crash on the box.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think you can elevate it that much. Mm-hmm. Have them do a set there. Mm-hmm. All right, that was pretty good. We're going to split that distance in half. All right, usually by the end of that first day of them squatting, they're where they should be squatting.
Okay, so you're bringing it down in the same session, not over a period of weeks, or
it's based on each person, how long that process takes. That I would definitely say is the biggest one. Maybe the pole rocking way back.
I don't know where that one came from.
Trying to ram way up.
Yeah.
All right, let's not do that one either.
How do you fix that?
I actually teach the box squat a little wrong.
Okay.
And I say, all right, now pause 1/2 inch above the box.
Okay.
And then that way they can't rock.
Okay.
And that's helped because we have a couple girls, taller athletes generally are like that.
Okay.
So once they feel their hamstrings on the box instead of sitting, mm-hmm. pause there, then go straight up.
Okay, I wouldn't say that you're teaching it a little wrong. I'd say you're teaching it to fit your demographic. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's the point that I'm trying to make with tackling each one of these things independently.
Right.
Because the way that I would fix that is I make them sit on the box and stop. So it'll be sit, stop.
Yeah, I've done that too.
And then I will put them in position and say, stand up now like you're on a Smith machine, mm-hmm. And watch the bar path. Sit, stop, But now you got me thinking because I've never done what you've done and which one would work faster. Because sometimes you're working with a group, right?
Right.
And so you got 12 kids, and if it's me in a seminar and stuff like that, I got 12 people I'm rotating through. I got to get each problem fixed as fast as I can because I may only have with each person 50 total reps over a period of, say, one seminar mm-hmm. to fix this, because I won't do a seminar where I have more than 12 people in a group in one squat station, and that's with somebody helping me. Right. Any more than that, I don't get the number of reps that I need to be able to see, fix, help, and make sure that it sticks.
Right.
And they know. That's why I've never understood how people are able to do seminars with one person with 50 people. How do you get the reps in? You're showing somebody, and then they're leaving, and then one person might know how to squat, mm-hmm. and 49 just saw somebody else squat.
Right.
Well, you better hope those 49 are visual learners and have a great retention rate.
And not telling people oh, this is how you have to do it. I did it. I learned from so-and-so and I did it perfect. They said so.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So that's with the box with, the bench. Okay. I guess the first question is, with the athletes, do you utilize the bench to the same degree as you utilize the squat or the box squat?
Yeah. Our athletes press every week.
Because they all press. Some people will go over pad, some people will go incline, that change it up.
Yeah. We rotate. Over the summer, we were training a volleyball team at their high school. Magnificent weight room, but just not set up optimally, at least in our opinion. Like, they have fat bars and all the racks are attached with fat bars. I'm training high school volleyball players, so they can't get their hands on the bar. So, they don't have training bars. So I have girls that are 80, 90 pounds. So benching half body weight first time that's a task.
Yeah.
So we did all dumbbell this year, the whole summer, and we rotated one dumbbell incline 1 week, and then 1 dumbbell flat, floor press, 2 dumbbell incline, 2 dumbbell flat, floor press. And
now, was this for the dynamic work?
Because we were only there 3 days.
Okay.
So that was like their press day.
Okay.
So all our kids, and I just had a talk with our coach that's leaving about this, we have to train a full body structure.
Yeah.
Because, we have kids, they might sign up 2, 3, 4 days a week. And this week they're showing up once. Next week they got a tournament in Myrtle Beach, so they won't be there at all. The following week, they'll be there every day. Like, it's very audible training.
Oh yeah, well, it has to be. What do you're gonna, I make a lot of assumptions, so correct me if I'm wrong. I assume that you have some type of testing modality, some way of testing to see if they're making progress or not.
Right.
Which in powerlifting, those tests obviously are the squat, bench, and the deadlift. For your athletes, what do you use as those markers of improvement?
Like a pro agility, a 5-10-5, a 20-yard sprint, a 40-yard, 20-yard down, 20-yard back, because our facility's not.
Yeah.
It's 40 yards wall to wall. So so 20 down, 20 back, vertical jump, long jump, pull ups or chin ups. Chin ups, I think, are the best thing for our athletes because, again, we have a lot of overhead athletes, and all our data shows that the athletes doing more chin-ups have less shoulder and elbow pain. So for us, that's a huge thing. A simple plank, a 60-second to 2-minute plank, that is huge. And the strength numbers I like to see progress, but I don't live on it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like this last year, I really started calculating, like, okay, this girl's 120 pounds. Comparatively, how is her squat, how is her deadlift with her body weight? And I'm not putting it into any formula. I'm just, and about 1 1/4 times body weight squat, 1 to 1.5. That's the range that our best athletes are at. So deadlift, trying to think, chin ups, box jumps.
So when you're developing the program, if it's total body, which you're in the process of developing now, it's developing the program to train the movements that are going to make these indicators better.
Right.
Okay. So to me, that's kind of a huge proponent of conjugate that gets lost, is you're not picking the movements that are going to make those movements better. You're trying to find the movements that make those movements better, and then make those movements stronger. Right. Because they have correspondence to the things that make them better athletes. So the question I would have then are, what are the main exercises that you build to make those? Because you're not testing them on these things every single week. No. You might test one a week or something like that, or skill practice one of them, but you're not doing full testing probably more than once every 8 to 12 weeks at most, right? But there are certain exercises that are telling you, like for Westside, we have max effort exercises. And oh shit, this is not going up, which I know my bench is not going up.
Right. If your floor press isn't going up, it's generally not a great sign.
It's not a good sign, or if it's there's builders and testers, and I'll confuse the shit out of people with that. For me, there are certain movements that just never get better. But if it's off, I'm fucked. All right. If it's always where it is, then I'm cool.
Right.
That's
as long as you can maintain that.
Yeah. To me, that's what I would consider a tester, because I've never been able to get stronger because either my leverages suck. There's some reason. Suspended good morning is the perfect. 455 was my best, and that was fucking 455 when I squatted 780 and 455 when I squatted 940. But if I
love that move.
If I couldn't fucking do 455, I knew I was fucked. If I did it real easy and I tried to go up, I missed it every goddamn time. So I'm like, okay, fine, 455, I'm cool, done. And it got to the point where it's like, you know what, just load it. I don't give a shit. I don't need to warm up. Just load the fucking thing. You know, because I'm going to be out first.
Right.
I mean, because that's terrible weight for that, especially at Westside. It's terrible.
Right.
So it's just let me get it over with. You know, take my scrapes and then get
take
the
your
fuck
4
out.
lifts
Yeah,
and
get the
accessories.
fuck out, you know, get out. So for you, what are those movements? You know, the box squat, obviously, you've already said is
yeah.
one of
Anytime
them.
our box squat can go up, that's a big thing. And you asked about like how often we test, and
Yeah.
the further I can get people away from testing, like we have some people like, I want to test my bench. I want to test this. I'm like, okay. The ones that just train, and we film a lot, like not like live stream, like, oh, look at us, like,
Yeah.
but I just break stuff down. Hey, watch this. Watch your elbow. Watch your knee. Watch your ankle doing this. That to me is better than anything. So you're asking like what lifts we use to push like our box squat or
The lifts that you know are going to make their testing better.
the hex bar deadlift. I know some people are like, that is stupid. And I used to be one of them. Never thought you could mess up a hex bar deadlift till I trained high school athletes.
Well, your hips can push through way too far.
There's a number of things. Like, we did it yesterday at the gym. I'm like, all right, it's okay. It's okay. Like, we're going to learn through this. Hex bar deadlift, sumo deadlift, anything. When they start moving the same weight, like when we use our accommodating resistance, when they start moving the same weight with accommodating resistance faster, that's when I know things are going good. Because, like I said, baseball and softball are big things. And when we start adding bands and chains and they start hitting through the ball more, that's when we really got a lot of carryover. The upper body, anytime, any rowing movement, when we can make progress on that, that's a good sign. Any pull movement, when we can teach them to actually do a pull apart, not just, you know.
Well, let's go into that. How do they fuck it up and how do you teach it right?
Which one?
The pull apart. I know exactly. I'm laughing with you, but I want the
like we have kids like doing tricep extension.
Yeah.
So like we do it a couple ways. We'll have them set up against a wall and squeeze the wall with their shoulders, and they're try to push everything up flat up against the wall, and that way they can't use their low back to start the movement, and they just have to touch their hands back to the wall.
Okay.
Or same thing on the ground, laying down with their back on the ground. We've done that. Or we'll have how Joe DeFranco does them, stand on the band and then do a front raise with the band and do the pull parts from there. But that's, you know, that's a little bit harder. But simple stuff like that has been like, and everybody blames kids now for everything, and that drives me fucking.
Somebody raised them. They forget that.
Somebody's buying the participation trophies everyone bitches about. Like, I never have kids tell me about their travel tournaments. I never have kids tell me how many trophies they have. It's the parents. And the parents want what's best, but the kids just want attention. They want to know someone cares. They want to have fun. They're playing their sport because it's fun to them.
Yes.
Fuck, what were we talking about?
The different types of screw ups that they do with the pull aparts, but your exercises, the way that you're having them do it, those are great ideas, you know, back against the wall, laying on the floor. If you're, you know, a strength coach already, I'm sure there's at some point, either pre-workout or post-workout, you have your athletes on the floor, you know, either doing movements in a quadruped or some type of position. You know, they're going to do, for most coaches, I know everybody's doing pull aparts, you know, throwing the band on the floor. You know, obviously they might have one already for hamstring work. They're not going to, well, maybe they can, but if they can do a pull apart with that, they probably shouldn't, they probably don't need to be doing pull aparts anymore. But it's making it faster. Right. You know, which is a key to any program with athletes is how fast can you make it? Because you semi-touched on something that they want to have fun. You know, training to them is not their sport. You know, it's their GPP. You know, their sport is their sport. So they're training because they want to become better at their sport. Right. You know, they do care about how much they can lift because they're it depends on the age though. Kids do because they want to compare to, you know, other kids. The older, more experienced athletes, you know, D1, higher professional, they don't really give that much of a fuck of how strong they are. What they care about is how they feel.
Yes.
Because they know they have to feel almost good to play good.
Right.
You know, and I mean, how you as a power lifter now getting to the higher ranks and the higher levels, it's going to start to become not a matter of how strong you are going into the meet, but how healthy you are going into the meet.
That's what I was talking with Luke about today.
Yeah, the healthiest guy wins. I mean, if there's 200-pound difference, it's your weight in total. I mean, 200 is a lot. It's a fucking lot. All right, and you're like, fuck, you know, I can't. This guy totals me by 200 pounds. Telling you what, if you go in healthy and that fucker's beat up, he only has to miss a couple lifts. Right. You need to make yours, and you just walked away beating him.
Right.
All right.
There's good and bad days. You
know what I'm saying? So but everybody goes in nicked, you know, unless they're, no pun intended, and unless they go in, they're young, you know, fresh, and you know, they don't have battle scars yet that they have to contend with, but. Everybody's got issues, you know. I think Brian Shaw said it in one of the interviews I saw last year when he made some video about his plantar fasciitis, and he was trying not to complain about it, even though he was complaining about it. But it's a motherfucker. I mean, plantar fasciitis sucks. It's a bitch, joke. You know. But he wasn't using it as an excuse because he knows everybody he was competing against has the same thing. Right. It's just, but whose can not hurt as much, you know, going in.
Well, and that's what. I sidetracked, and I remember you were asking how to little movements and how we gauge the movements that build the movements that we know work and help. So I've been doing it like 10 years, and it seems, again, not blaming kids, their hips are tighter, their upper back's tighter, their abs are weaker. Every workout, if we can work on those things a little bit, in 2 months we're going to see a huge difference. So then we watch how they move freely through space. How are they sprinting? How are they changing? When they go to change direction, can they, you know, get into a better position, better angles with their shin, their feet, everything else? So the exercises and strength is huge, but I really care how they move.
Well, you have to. I mean, with tight hips, they can't move. You know, hell, it even affects their deceleration. Yeah. I mean, it affects change of movement, affects everything. I'm going to fall back onto the trap bar because you just tested people on that. The reason why, you know, it got a bad rap, at least from me years ago, is it's so quad dominant. And my bias is very posterior dominant. And at the time, everybody was extremely weak posterior. It's a little better now than what it was 15 years ago. But quads kind of come and go in popularity. Right. And thank God, you know, because I mean, when it comes, I think everybody jumps on the quad wagon because you can see it. Yeah. You know, you can, if somebody walks in the room, you can see it. You don't necessarily see their erectors or their hamstrings. Right. But you'll see it on the field when they kick your fucking ass. Right. But you can see the quads. But once people realize, you know what, if they're genetically not inclined to have big quads, it's hard to it's hard and painful to grow quads. So then they get away from it. Right. You know, they go back. So I think that's why it kind of comes and goes with, so that's why I hated the trap bar, because it's just so quad dominant. And I was very quad dominant coming into Westside that, you know, Louis would, you know, he threw the trap bar away. You know, it came in and went right back out, and I was fucking really good at it, and it's like, this sucks, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a competitive lifter, you probably don't need to trap bar to deadlift.
Yeah, but what I see, the hip, like with a deadlift, the bar stops your hips. You know, the hips can float through too far, you know, so you're trying to do it to be safer, but then you're compromising the fuck out of their lower back if you're not telling them stop, you know, or something.
Don't over pull. Okay.
So when I brought that up, you said there's a whole host of things that they're fucking up. That's one that I know really well. What are the ones that come to mind that you just saw?
Shoulders, moving or shoulders rounding because it's here, so they just bend down and pick up.
Okay.
It's hard to pick up a barbell on the ground really wrong. Like
Yeah.
your initial feedback's gonna be, well, this is fucked. Something, I don't know what, but a hex bar you can sort of, I don't know why, but I can have kids pick those up just wrong as all get out. So there's that. Because it is more quad dominant, sometimes the kids with not as good coordination, you will see them drift forward up onto their toes a little bit easier. So I've gone back and forth, and probably about 6 months ago I said, we have hex bars. They're not evil. We're going to use them as a tool like everything else. Mm-hmm. So we bring them in, we take them out. Mm-hmm. You know, and some of the kids like the hex bar, some hate them.
I mean, it's to be expected.
Yeah. But I used to be, we're not deadlifting with a barbell. Like, I was on that for a while. And then when I got to Westside, I'm like, okay, I can see what he's doing. And then I use the sumo deadlift for their hips. That helped with our lateral speed.
Yeah, you go ultra wide.
Yeah.
You know, it's just...
Well, ultra wide for high school athletes is still like shoulder width. So
Good point.
Yeah, we're not putting the collars on.
Yeah.
But same, you know, it's the same as the box squat. We start on a high mat, drop it down a little on the ground.
That's how tight their hips are, though. I mean, that's the determining factor is why they can't get out.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you got to hang out with some high school kids. It's
wow. Mm-hmm. Holy shit.
Yeah, they can't. You know, at best they could do like a modified sumo, like at the Ed Cohn stance, like.
So the widest they can possibly be would be in your normal athletic stance doing a side shuffle drill that a coach would have them have.
I would, before we work with them, probably, yeah.
Okay. And that's them coming in, though.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we do a lot of high box squatting.
Yeah.
And then, again, use that as their breakdown. But, yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. I think that, you know, it's JL wrote that one article on shin angle with squatting, which, you know, he caught a lot of shit for and a lot of praise for. It was controversial. I think the delivery of it, and it was basically saying, you know, no athlete needs to squat below parallel.
Right.
All right. Well, they need to squat to where they're going to get the biggest bang for the buck. So if their hips are too tight, you can't force them you know, into a compromised position because I've done
There's
it.
a whole host of issues that goes with that.
I mean, you pop a hip flexor, that's taken forever.
Yeah.
All right. Normally that won't happen because they're not. I'm going to sound like Louis. They're not strong enough to actually tear a muscle, but they will fuck their back up.
Yeah.
You know, they will twist, they will contort, you know, and do weird shit, you know, with that. So you just keep them higher, man. Who the fuck cares? You know,
yeah.
It's what they do on the field. You know, it's people can, you know, make fun of that. You know, they can post it on Instagram and people can make fun of their high squat, but they better be there to make fun of them when they're up fucking 20 points.
LeBron James's viral squat videos that everyone bashed.
Yeah.
He's making more money this year than I will ever make training people. He's got more NBA titles than me, and it doesn't matter. You know, and I've had that argument about the box squat. People are saying, well, they're athletes, they're not lifters. I go, I get that. I knew that when they came in. And they go, well, it's not sport specific. And I go, neither squatting without a box. And we all know that the weight room's GPP for the sport, right? So if we're just working on GPP, save your SPP for the field.
Okay. Oh, man.
And the fuse has blown.
Here we go. Specificity with the box squat. Granted, if you drop on the box so hard you're going to break your spine, that's not a box squat. Okay? Actually, and if you squat to the box, just tap the box and come back up, that's squatting to a box. It's not a box squat.
I'm even cool with that as long as you acknowledge it's...
Yes, but you want to talk about specificity. All right, let's just talk about Gen Pop. In an average day, somebody... Fuck Gen Pop. Let's just say anybody from that's in high school and above. In an average day, how many times do they actually squat down and stand back up?
Well, if you're in high school, at least nine times for classes.
But where are they sitting?
Yeah.
On a fucking chair.
Yeah. And
okay, and if they're going to sit, your person's going to go to work, where are they going to sit? At a fucking chair. If they're going to get in their car, they're going to sit in a fucking seat. Mm-hmm. Anytime anybody sits down, they're going to sit on a toilet. All right, when do normal people just squat down and stand back up where they're not sitting on something? When does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, well, and I've heard,
on Pornhub. Outside of that, where does this fucking happen? This is a serious question I throw out, and it makes people fucking think. Like, whoa, wait. Yeah. Okay, now, we have a lot of back issues in this fucking country. A lot of back issues. And Brian Carroll and Stuart McGill brought one thing to the surface, which is fucking huge. And that is, how do we move outside of the weight room? Simple shit.
Daily activity.
How do you get up from a chair? How do you stand up from the chair? How do you get up out of bed? Yeah. What form? Your feet flat, back neutral, hand against your thighs.
Yeah.
Box squat. Basically, you see what I'm saying? So everybody, they want to talk specificity, right? All right. I've never, wrestlers, yes, full squat. Greco-Roman wrestlers, yeah, full squat. Catchers, full squat. I mean, yes, we can sit here and nitpick and go through and find certain sports.
Right.
But let's just, normal people in general, when are they going to fucking, it's not like they're walking down the street, hey, I'm going to do a squat. Squat down, stand back up, keep walking.
You never know, man. Fitness is going crazy here lately.
I don't see it. But what I do see is they're walking down the street, they get tired, they sit down on a stool. Mm-hmm. Or they're walking around the park, they sit down on a park bench. I see benches all over the goddamn place.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So there you go. You want to talk specificity. Maybe we should spend more time teaching people how to sit down properly and how to stand up properly, just because of the sheer instances and issues that we have of back problems in the United States, for all the stuff that's happening outside of training.
Right.
But we're not doing that. So they're twisting when they get up. You know what I'm saying? I can sit there and say, I can actually because I can be all biased now. We're Conjugate, man. We're fucking bros in this shit.
I got to put that on my IG bio.
Yeah, the fucking box squat can fix most problems in society.
Yeah.
My back issues.
My wife, she's a physical therapist, and her rotation in a skilled nursing facility was mostly teaching people how to get off of bed, how to get off the toilet. I've
been in serious conditions several times in a hospital to where you needed a physical therapist to come in. My best friend, who's no longer with us, many times the first thing they teach them, is how to roll. How to roll, get on your side, and then how to stand up.
Right.
That's the first thing they learn when they're coming out of surgery, when they can't move, when they're bedridden. The first thing they have to learn is how to stand up. All right, how to stand up properly. What's a child learn?
Yeah. How
to stand up, and look at the form that you stand up in. Okay, and now you could make that argument and say, well, they're not doing a box squat, Dave. All right, but we still have toilets for them to sit on. Now, would it be more optimal if they just squatted down and shat without the toilet?
Maybe.
Yes. I'm not going to disagree with anybody there. I totally fucking agree with that. Are the toilet seats probably too high? Yes, I'm not going to disagree with that. Should high school kids, from what you're telling me, shit in the woods? Most definitely.
Put that on our whiteboard. Quit using your toilets.
Yeah, so it's got this box squat thing. I got to get off of this because I haven't even talked about the benefits, the physical benefits yet.
Oh no, and there's no need to.
yeah, it's out there. Search it.
But and I've had people argue with me about spinal compression. Well, if you have a load pushing down on your spine, you have spinal compression when you walk because of gravity.
Yes.
You also
and if you stand up wrong, as I'm talking about, you twist.
Yeah.
You twist as you sit down. The spinal compression, it's still there. Why not learn how to do it right?
Correct.
Embraced. Which I'll use that as a segue into bands, because the compression.
Bands are the best thing.
Okay, bands are the next thing. So we're going to move from boxes to bands. So how do you use, and let's just talk strength, because there's flexibility, mobility, distraction, there's so many areas that bands could be used for that we could sit here for an hour just on, and you're probably using them for mobility, you're probably using them for speed work, you're probably using them for distraction and all these other stuff. Just strength. Let's just stay with strength, because that's
just with the lifts.
Just with the lifts. That's what people really care about. If we segue into some of the other ones, but do you use the bands with the kids, and why?
Yeah, we do. And, and I've had this conversation with Watts and Lou, and it's still an ongoing thing. We're still experimenting and trying different setups, and, we use the micro bands a lot, for beginners on the deadlift. But I wish we would have done bands before chains at my gym, because you can't unrack a squat bar with a loaded band not having some tightness.
Mm-hmm.
So it was when we did the bands the first time, within everyone doing their first set, I said we should have done this first.
Mm-hmm.
And because everyone unracks and goes, oh fuck, because they don't want to get crushed. So it gives them that feedback right away. And I think the bands teach acceleration better than chains.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean...
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I did with all my personal training clients. If they were going to squat, I put bands on. They were mini bands, but I did it with a broomstick, even if they couldn't use a bar, or a curl bar if that's all they could use. I put the bands on because the two hardest things to teach somebody who's never lifted weights before is how to get tight
mm-hmm.
and how to accelerate. So I put the bands on as soon as they step back.
Right.
Now they know tightness. I got to reinforce it. I need to show them what's going on so they can do it if the band's not there. But they know what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
And if they try to stand up slow, they're going to go right. They do all the time. They go up about 2 inches and go right back down.
Yep.
And then come up real fast.
Yeah.
There you go.
Even if they missed the one rep, they're not going to do that again.
No, they're going to come up faster.
Yes.
So now you just taught them compensatory acceleration.
Right.
That's done. So, from that standpoint, that took two things that were the hardest things for me to do. I was pushing on them, hitting them kind of with a fucking dowel rod, to make sure their abs were tight, doing all this other stuff to make sure things were tight, and it just wasn't working,
mm-hmm.
And it fixes it.
The weight deloads in the bottom, which I don't know if you've ever worked with college or lower athletes. The worst place for them to feel comfortable is at the bottom of a lift.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take that fear away, that's even better.
Mm-hmm.
So the bands, even for bench, I used them on bench last because I was like, I can't have a kid bust their fucking head
mm-hmm.
open. So we started with like a choked micro band, then doubled the micro band, then choked mini band, then doubled up the mini band for the athletes that could.
Mm-hmm.
And our bench went from shit to awesome in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure if I post stuff, people are like, this idiot.
Well, you know what? We got to put things into context here. We're not talking about ridiculous amounts of band tension here either.
No.
We're talking about what I would call technical training amounts of band tension. So band tension to elicit the response that you're looking for, better lat tightness, the bar not going back and forth, tight.
It grounds the bar, it grounds the athlete.
Yeah, yes. So, and that can be a negative for, a higher level power lifter,
mm-hmm.
but that can be mitigated, throughout the training. But it's not going to be a problem for an athlete.
No.
So the other thing that I think goes unmentioned with the bands is, let's take it to a step higher to where it's a little bit more band tension. And the band tension goes up as their technique gets better.
Correct.
We need to put that out there because I think we both agree on that. You can't take shitty technique and just overload it. All right, you can't do it with chains, you can't do it with bands, you can't do it with free weights.
No.
And, you just can't. They're not. That would be called chaos training, and that would be for somebody that's at a very advanced level that
A
you
smaller,
purposely
a
want
very, very small percentage.
Yes, so it's definitely not going to be effective for them. They will get hurt. So this could be where a lot of people have problems. Is people are trying to utilize, they don't know what the fuck they're doing, and they're putting bands on that are way too heavy. Fucking,
I've seen
up,
that,
you know, and it's a nightmare.
Yeah,
and it's like, dude, you know, what the hell? But you go up a notch and you take some of your more advanced high school players that maybe have been training with you for a couple of years, their technique is 80% or above solid, and you put on moderate band tension. You know, when you have that moderate band tension, that band's trying to push you down faster than gravity. You know, we'll leave, like I said, the science stuff you can search, you know, elitefts.com, semicolon, band, you know, bands, or Westside Barbell, Westside-barbell.com, bands. There's enough shit out there you can find, you know, reasons to use the bands. But the one thing I don't see people talking about is, especially today, with bracing being the new big thing, put a lot of band tension on there. All right, so when you take it out, it's heavy as fuck on your back. Not Circumax heavy, but 80-90% heavy. You got to breathe. All right, and when all you do is speed work, and it's, you know, lighter, or all it's submaximal, breathing's not that hard. You know, you can get your air, you can pull your air, you can hold your air. All right, you go to your next meet, unrack your opener, it's going to be heavy as fuck, and you know, but don't mean you can't squat it.
Right.
It's going to be heavy as fuck. You need to learn how to pull that air with that fucking weight on your back that's pushing you, compressing you.
Yeah.
Tremendously. What's a way to learn how to do that without putting 1,000 or whatever you're going to do plus on the bar?
Right.
Well, you have it so it's like 900 at the top, you know, with the bands. Chains could fall in the same category as long as it's at the top.
Right.
It's heavy as fuck. You stand up with it, and you're like, oh, you know what I'm saying? Just you don't know what the hell you're doing at the very beginning. But after a few weeks, all of a sudden, it's like, wham, there it is, you know, and you're teaching them how to brace without having to go through all these floor exercises, all these breathing exercises, and all these different exercises because of that compression that's pushing down, you know, on their spine. Their lungs are being compressed, diaphragm, you know what I'm saying? They have to, either that or they just don't breathe.
Right.
And if they do that, they're going to get stuck on the box, and it happens a lot.
Right.
But you tell them, you know, next time, hey, listen, hold it for a second.
Yeah.
Don't go down until you feel like your
ready.
Belt is ready to break. Now go. And then it's, oh my God, you know, so that's like one of those, you know, like the secret Super Mario mushroom nobody thinks about, but you jump and you hit it like, oh shit. It teaches that. It also teaches, you know, rooting, you know, your feet into the ground, you know, because it's going to want to throw you forward, backward. And you can actually make it throw, you know, by where you set the bands. You know, you can put them anywhere to make you. Now, a negative with it, and this is for the more advanced people and intermediate to advanced, is it can work like a Smith machine. It can ground you.
It can, yeah.
So, and those are the people you got to really watch out for. It does happen, not everybody, but it does happen where if you get that in the right position, you can groove it really fucking easy. And some people it's easier than others, and they don't get the carryover everybody else does, and they don't know why. Well, change your band position, you know, and then all of a sudden you realize just a couple, actually just 1 inch, a little further forward than where you have it.
Oh yeah,
you're gonna find a whole nother world that isn't going to ground you. But your natural tendency, you know, if it's max effort work or speed work, especially towards the end, I don't care who you are, you're going to find the most optimal position. Oh yeah. You know, to be able to move that through.
Well, I mean, everything you just touched on was my last meet.
Yeah.
We squatted with, and Josh tried to get me to squat with heavy bands for a long time. And I mean, just like start your wave with at least a blue band. So he's like, he's like, you'll benefit a lot. And I'm like, you know, I'd mess around with it. I'd be like, yeah, this source sucks. Well, then when I started training with Luke, like, dude, we did waves and waves and waves of heavy fucking band. Went up to the gym one day and I asked a couple of the guys what they were doing. They were like, oh, we're going to take a squat. I'm like, okay. And I hadn't squatted, I squatted 880 at the Arnold and hadn't really squatted since then. And I was like, oh, I got my squat suit. I'll throw it on, just see how today goes. I ended up squatting 935, so a 55-pound PR. Like, fuck, that's cool. That is cool. Then I'm like, I got to find a meet. I was already thinking my deadlift was going good. My bench was going good. I was like, I need to find a meet. So I'm like, I get online. I'm like, what's coming up? And we were going on vacation and, real life stuff. So I called Lou on Monday and I was like, hey, man, I got a question for you. You might say I'm an idiot. This is pretty dumb. I was like, we're taking some people to a meet down the road this weekend. I feel pretty good, and I don't really want to train this week. I was like, what do you think about me jumping in that meet and squatting 900? He goes, well, fuck yeah. He's like, do you think you can do it? I was like, well, yeah. I felt fine after squatting. Went to the meet, opened at, I don't know, high sevens, 780, I opened at 820, went straight to 900. So a 20-pound PR, then to 930. Easiest meet I've ever done, just from the heavy bands. And because I was standing up weight, the weight felt like nothing. I was staying tighter. I was staying more grounded, everything I've ever done. You
just got to not overdo it.
Right.
Louis knows that line.
Right.
We crossed that line. But it's a good thing, because I don't think, if it wasn't for my generation and they're crossing that line, more and more people would be fucked.
Your generation helped our generation a lot.
Yeah, so you guys aren't going to get as fucked up, because it's a different generation. Maybe, well, I don't want to say that. I'll leave it alone. I have to say now because I just said that twice. Maybe the guys of the generation aren't going to be, they wouldn't be as willing to do it, where we're like, fuck it. I remember training sessions where the first rep of the dynamic work was like fucking max effort. And it's like, okay, we got 7 more sets. I'm like, oh, fuck, okay, we'll fucking do this, and every fucking one, and then you get a glimpse of hope, like, oh, that wasn't bad. And then the next one, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
And then I can't walk the next day. Louis is calling my fucking wife, is Dave okay? I'm like, shut the fuck up. Don't say anything. I can't even get to I got to crawl to the bathroom because my feet hurt so bad. And I'm like, don't fucking tell him anything. Just, I'm cool. I'm fine. Meanwhile, he's fucked up too. He's trying to figure out if I'm fucked up, but I don't want to let him know that I'm fucked up. It's just, it was actually really dumb now that I think about it. Yeah. Because I should have said, yeah, I'm fucked up. And he would have said, I'm fucked up too. Maybe we need to back it down.
Yeah, maybe we can actually change something.
Yeah, I got that fucking believer in that. I'm fine. He left. He's off to work. He's gone before I got up. I'm fucking, crawling into the bathroom to fucking, run my foot over a baseball, just to stand up for the damn thing. But it wasn't without reason,
right?
You know what I'm saying? So that's what I like about it is it's you guys are lifting bigger weights, because of it, and safer, and not only that, but the impact that it's having to the coaches that he's working with and how they're implementing it, because it's still the bands, and I'm actually, and it's my bias is really more toward chain than it is band now, but that's because I have prosthetics.
Right.
And I don't want, there's different reasons why I have it, which are not related to actual training. And I do think people have to have, for real hard band training, they have to have at least 5 or 6 years of training age. And solid technique, because it will beat the fuck out of you, and you have to be able to recover from it and be able to handle it. And a circuit max phase for somebody that's been training for 2 years doesn't make a lot of sense to me at all, whatsoever, because their technique isn't even displaying what their actual strength is.
Right.
So it isn't circuit max.
Right.
It's not even at that point yet. But the chains, for those that don't really know the difference, the easiest way to explain it is the chains kind of deload into the floor, the bands deload into you. And from a training percentage standpoint, I've done past podcasts talking about the training percents and how to figure out what percents to use for your own training, and to keep in mind that, as I said before in I think it was the Conjugate podcast, that everybody's going to give you different waves and different percentages of recommendations, but those are basically always based upon the groups of people that they normally train.
Right.
All right. So it's all going to be optimized to the group of lifters that they work with, and what they see. And the higher the advanced lifters, or the more advanced the lifter, the lower the percentage is typically going to be. I already walked you guys through. You can go back and listen to the other podcasts on how to figure the chain, or how to figure your straight weight percentages out. Now, the way you adjust the straight weight percentages to accommodate the bands or the chains is very simple. If it's chains and you're setting them up so they completely deload on the ground at the bottom, which there's many ways to set up chains, I think this is the most optimal way to set them up for explosive strength. You don't have to change the percent at all. You do nothing, because the added acceleration that you're going to have takes care of whatever change you'd have to make to the percent at the top. With the bands, whatever the weight is at the bottom needs to come off of the bar. So if it's the bench and it's still 40 pounds on your chest, 40 pounds needs to come off the bar, squat, whatever. If you can't figure out how much the bands weigh, there's things called fish scales that can weigh 300 pounds, or hunting scales. We got a hunting scale. Very fucking easy to take a hunting scale, put a strap around the monolift or your power rack,
Right.
fucking pull the bands up, and you don't have to worry about the shit that we used to do, which was stack a bunch of boards on top of a scale, then try to balance the bar with bands. And I think two people tore biceps doing that shit, when all we needed was a deer scale. I mean, it's unbelievable. But then you'll know what it is. But even that's kind of irrelevant if you're looking at the force and what type of training that you're doing. It's still going to come down to the speed. The bands are going to make you look slower than what the chains are, but it doesn't mean that the force is different. Now, that's where things like Tendo units and different force output units come into play. My personal opinion, you may think different. I'd rather go by what I see than what I read.
Yes.
And I can see a difference, then I can make that change, immediately. The other thing is with those units, and if you have competitive lifters, and I don't deal with athletes, so it could be different with athletes, but I doubt it. Athletes may actually be more competitive. They're going to do one of two things if they have a number that they're going to see flash in front of them. They're going to either want to break and be faster than the guy that went before them, so they're better, or sometimes they'll use a Tendo or force measuring device to determine when that set will end. So it could be a set of 5 or 7, but it ends when it drops under 0.8 meters
once
per
the output
second.
drops.
Yeah. So I asked the coach one time, well, what do you do if a player's just lazy and he just wants to stand up slower? Never thought about it. I'm like, you've really seriously never fucking thought about this.
These are real things.
You're a high level strength coach. You spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in this weight room. Who knows how much for all these fucking units to be, put on every rack and every bench, all over this damn place. And whole training program is based upon when that number drops. And you never thought that a lifter could just push it a little slower to end the set sooner. You realize they're here to play football, not lift weights. Yeah. And half of them in here don't want to be in here.
Yeah. That's the biggest issue with training higher level athletes. Everyone, I was reading something from Joe DeFranco, a Q&A one time. Some guy was like, I just want to train pro athletes. How do I get to high level athletes? So people that are really in it.
I think the best answer to that is one that Wendler gave a long time ago, and that is, be the best trainer you can be of beginners. Because that's what it is. Yeah. It's, if you're a high school strength coach, you're dealing with people that may have never trained with weights before. Okay, and that's it. And then if they make it to college, Division I, you might be dealing with people that kind of dabbled around in a weight room.
Right.
Kind of serious. If they're from Texas, maybe, certain states are going to be different than others. But they're still going to have less than 2-3 years of real training experience.
Right.
So they're still all beginners. And if you don't know how to coach beginners and all you do is spend your time studying all these high advanced methods, you're an idiot, because they're beginners.
Yeah.
The
pros aren't going to train generally to improve their performance. They're training by contract
or longevity.
Or longevity.
Yeah. Or longevity. It's money.
Yes. So that's also, I think there's a misconception that a higher level athlete works harder, works more. Even in powerlifting, I'm sure you had training partners, and I'm sure you went to meets.
Man. When I was traveling with Louis doing the consulting that he was doing, one pro team that was in the playoffs the year before were there, and it was preseason. The season just so the training pro they had to train. If they didn't train, they got fined. 4 players, I believe it was, when the weight room opened, just walked in, laid an envelope down full of cash, and walked out. They paid the fine for the whole fucking time, and left. And I'm like, this is not fucking unbelievable. Like, these guys don't love to train? Like, oh, fuck no, dude. That was like a wake-up call for me, because I didn't know any better.
Right.
I'm like, these guys train all the time, man. Why would you not? You're at this level. And he's like, you don't know a fucking thing about what we do. Yeah. And I'm like, well, tell me, because this is fucked up. I'm like, do you get to keep that money? It's like because that's a hell of a fucking, that's a hell of a bonus. And he's like, no, they're fine. I'm like, so they just prepaid their fine. That's for the whole. I'm like, well, how many more times is this going to happen? It's we'll wait and see at the end of the day. So it's fucked up, but that's the reality. It may not be that way now because this was a long time ago. Let's get to, let me see if I got what I wanted to get here. Here's the questions, Josh.
Well, I'm going to pop and use the restroom real quick.
Oh. You got anything you can talk about while he's in the bathroom?
Yeah, probably.
You didn't get to any of these yet?
No, maybe some. I mean, the ones about Westside, I kind of already knocked that, out from that standpoint.
Here's one I can ask you, Dave.
Yeah.
If I'm interested in competing equipped, how do I know which bench shirt, squat suit, etc. to buy off of elitefts.com? Is there a difference between them for a beginning equipped lifter? Sorry for the ignorance, but I think this type of powerlifting where I'd like to end up.
I have to define the equipped, so I'm going to just make an assumption and assume that you mean multiply. And the reason I'm making that assumption is because Metal they didn't pay the IPF fees for the single ply gear. They did for, the raw gear, but not for the single ply gear. So the single ply gear made by Metal is, APF, and I think USPA might have single ply divisions. I would just, what I would tell people to do is go straight into the multiply. And the best way to go about it is to order one size larger than what you think it's going to be or what you think you need, because you can always take it in, you can't let it out. So by ordering one size larger, that gives you a better ability to be able to learn the gear, and it's pretty much all the same. So the biggest decision you have to make is if you want to squat in canvas or if you want to squat in poly. And that depends upon, your squat style, your comfort level, and so forth. Poly's easier to learn. I would actually, if it's something that you're considering, I would start, if you're going to go and you plan on staying in gear, then I would go with either the Ace or the Jack briefs, which are the multiply briefs. They're thicker briefs. I would go with those and then learn how to use those first. And then the shirt, it doesn't just take your pick. I mean, they're all kind of, you're going to have to learn the groove of whatever shirt that you use. So, and this is irregardless of if it's metal or any other company. The biggest mistake people make in multiply is gear hop. So instead of learning what they have, they just say this doesn't work and they go to something else. Where, you know, I can give names of multiple lifters that have been sponsored by every gear company there is, and they broke PRs with each sponsorship that they've had. I won't give the names because they are currently sponsored through competitors, and that would be unfair, you know, to that competitor for me to say X and X squatted, you know, whatever they did, use a metal gear. But at the top, especially in today's climate with gear, you know, it's not growing, you know, it's stagnating, you know, it may grow, it may not grow, it may stay the same. It's the one thing I can say for absolute certainty, because people will argue with me and say I'm full of shit, even though the numbers say that differently. It hasn't grown at the same rate as raw, raw didn't really even exist until 2010, 2012. Single ply has also taken a huge hit too, actually a way bigger hit than what multiply had. As I said earlier in the podcast, maybe multiply had 3,000 or 4,000 at the tops, and by the end of the year, maybe there's 1,000. So we're looking at a 75% decrease, which is, it's big, right? It's fucking huge. Where before, you know, with the single ply probably took over that, you know, probably 90%. So huge. So it's just all gear. So in my mind, they should just combine them. Like, fuck it, you know, it's just gear. Because I know people getting more out of single ply shirts than I do getting out of multiply shirts and suits. And the reason for that is going to fall back to what I said before. You need to learn how to use whatever you have. Now, if you're a raw lifter and you want to use gear as an overload, then I think you got to be very conscientious of how thick the gear is for a couple reasons. The thicker the briefs are, the more it's going to want to push you back, like way back, to where your shin is, you know, at a straight angle, you know, and that's fine if that's how you normally squat. Most raw lifters don't normally squat that way. So then you're going to use the gear as an overload, you know, and it's not going to really be an overload for the way that you squat. It would be a max effort exercise, you know, so it would be a heavy overload exercise that's different than your squat, but it wouldn't reinforce the exact same movement pattern as your squat. So if you wanted it just for max effort work, that's fine. But what you're going to find is it's going to start pushing you back, and you're going to find out real fast how weak your hamstrings and ass are. Because you're gonna end up falling over. Nick and I talked earlier about, you know, the high school kids sitting down to a box and bottoming out the bottom. It's gonna happen to you because your hamstrings and ass are not strong enough, you know, to be able to handle that being pushed back. And people will say, well, the gear does all that. No, the gear supports that. You know, it stops you. You still have to have the strength to be able to get down in there. So if it is raw and you want to use gear as an overload, keep in mind I sell metal and I'm an exclusive supplier there, so you know I need to put that out there because there's going to be a bias. The Metal M briefs I feel are the best briefs that you can use because it's not going to provide a big huge carryover. It's going to cradle your hips, it's going to support your hips better than any reband type neoprene sleeve will, and actually a little bit better even than the thicker stuff. But what the thicker briefs do is when you sit down, that folds into your hip crease. The gear does. If you watch any multiply lifter with a lot of gear, you're going to see that folds in there. All right, where that's pushed, two things happen when that folds in there. One part of the fold that you can see coming up just keeps getting higher and higher and higher as they sit down. Okay, which makes judging, you know, the crease at the top of the hip way harder. You know, I'm not saying that I haven't seen squats that were a mile high. I fucking have. You know, so it's a shitty excuse for somebody saying that their squat was good when it was a mile high. But it does make it harder to judge because that material does bunch up as you sit down. But while it's bunching up, it's also pushing in to your crease of your hip. And there's right in there, right under that muscle, or within that muscle is the bursa. And that can push hard enough, really hard into that bursa that you inflame that bursa sac. And I've done this several times, so this is how I know about it. I've seen it happen to a few other people. And you inflame bursa, it can go away in a long time, a really long time. Ice isn't going to help because it's too deep. You can stretch it all you want, ain't going to help because it's fucking inflamed. You can take anti-inflammatories, might help, may not help. Really the best, and I'm not a doctor, this is what I used. You know, the best course of action for me was just to get the cortisone injected into the bursa, get rid of the inflammation, and it's gone. Now, the bursa is not in the joint, so I was never worried about the cortisone as far as weakening tendons and, you know, all the side effects that we hear about, the evil side effects of cortisone. I was never worried about that because it wasn't going into an area that was super, like, not directly into a tendon, like a pec or something like that. It was just to get, and then boom, that's fine. But when it happens over and over again, because all you're trying to do is overload your squat, it's just, it doesn't make sense. So you go with something thinner that takes that crease out, because it's thinner, you can pull it up and it's going to pull that crease out and it's going to lay flat against your skin and it's going to bend against your skin. So the raw lifters, the metal M briefs, is the way to go. We're making training shorts, which are basically going to be the same thing as the metal M briefs. They're just going to be marketed a little bit differently. They're still, and they're not going to have the orange, you know, that's going to be on there. But I think everybody should use briefs, to be honest with you, and then pull them out maybe 6-8 weeks before a meet if they're raw, and make sure that when they're using the briefs, it's the same training technique that they're going to use when they pull out raw. Otherwise, there's going to be some kind of issues. So that's it with the gear.
Okay. This one's for you, Nick. What were the biggest obstacles in opening a gym? Did you already cover that in the beginning?
Not really.
Okay. In opening, money. Money is, you know, keeping the lights on and everything else, and then getting clientele. Like I said, I was young when I opened, 24. So telling, you know, adults, hey, you need to trust your children with me. You know, I'd established a reputation, but still, you're leaving your kids with a 24-year-old. And looking back, I don't know many 24-year-olds if I had kids, you know. So there was that. A trainer that's still with me, he came when I was laying down my turf. And he's like, hey, I want to be in a gym. I want to learn to coach. He'd been around football and basketball his whole life. And I said, man, I'll be honest, I have no money. I have nothing to offer you. I can help you meet people. I can get you books. Whatever non-financial stuff you need, I can probably help with. But I cannot pay you. So if you want to set something up, like, I'm all in. Like, I can take help. But I financially have nothing to offer you. And he's like, dude, that's fine. And I was like, oh, shit, that worked. And he's been with me the whole time, so 6 years. So from the day we laid the turf down to now, and he's ran with it. You know, he created his own groups and got his own clients, and he's the reason we have an adult clientele. And I told him, I was like, I don't want to deal with it. Like, this is your thing. If it fucks up, I'm canceling it because I don't need added stress right now. And he's done a great job with it. He manages all that side, and, you know, we just coordinate about monthly on how it's going, how it's progressing. So, you know, the issue starting was money and getting clients in. Then the issue quickly after that was, oh shit, now I have these clients. Now what do I do? And learning how to manage the money as you get more. Everyone thinks money solves everything. It really fucking doesn't. Like, we had, you know, your first few years, you're trying to figure out the trends of what your business will tell you. It's like, okay, this is a good month. And I'm learning now after 6 years that there's trends, but they're fucking loose trends. Like, you know, I think September is generally one of our worst months, and last month was incredible, you know, from a business standpoint. So one of our really first busy months, I mean, we were crushing it. I was like, oh shit, this is awesome. Now I got to buy more equipment to train all these people. Spent a shitload of money on equipment and just like odds and ends stuff that people don't realize costs money to put into your business. And then the next month was our worst month ever. So we went from our best month, hands down, to our worst month. It was worse than the first month I opened. And I was like, oh shit, I did not plan that. So stuff like that, that's figuring out what the trends of your business will be. And I think a big problem everyone tries to make, or doesn't try to make the problem, but they end up doing it, is forcing their niche. I didn't force my niche. Like I said, the softball girl, that led to another girl, and now we have a ton of softball girls. College, that girl ended up playing pro last year. So that softball, baseball niche happened. You know, we train athletes, that's our niche, yes. But our main sports would be softball and baseball. So, like, we didn't force that. And I think a lot of people opening gyms, and I did this too, have identity crisis because fitness is evolving so fast. Like right now, it seems like I have a gym. Once I realized I don't need online programming to keep my gym open, it got so much easier. You know, just understanding and being realistic with what you are, what service you're providing. I provide a personal service, me and the coaches at our facility, you know, a clean gym with good equipment, a sound program. I don't need, my marketing's different than you as an online retail. And I think people need to differentiate where they're at. If it's one-on-one training, your marketing better be different than a sports performance facility. If you're running boot camps, that, you know, that's a whole different thing. So realizing that you can't wear all these hats, you can't be the best sports performance center, the best weight loss, diet, meal prep company all in one. So that was tough figuring out what exactly we were, because I had my idea of what we were and what we were shooting for, but ultimately your clientele will let you know sort of where you stand. So that was a big thing. Yeah, I'd say learning to manage money, learning to manage time. I mean, and every small business owner I've talked to, regardless of their industry, has generally been the same. And Claire, my wife, her old boss in California, he said one of the best things I ever heard, you know, running his private PT clinic, he said the only constant in our business is change. And when, you know, me and him, we get along, but, you know, I don't agree with a lot of the things. But when he said that, I was like, holy shit, that is spot on. Yeah. That, you know, like our one coach, him and his girlfriend are in the same situation me and my wife were in, and she just got a job down in North Carolina. So he emailed me like, dude, this is her dream. Like, I've loved my time with you, like your facility, your athletes, like everything's been incredible, but like we got to jump at this opportunity. I was like, shit. Like, damn, man, that's my main coach. Like that's the one that's with me every day. But so I did what I can do. Like I texted John Patrick at UNC Charlotte, and I said, hey man, I got a good coach coming down that way. You know, I put some feelers out for him, put some stuff out. Hey, we're looking for another coach. So accepting that change is going to be an everyday thing. And now looking back, I don't know that I could have a set schedule. I think the spontaneous schedule is fitting my personality. Yeah. You know, like Sundays, sometimes I have to do some program stuff. You know, all over, like you said, answering emails at 11. Sometimes that happens. But getting a grasp and realizing, and then again, as your business grows, you have new issues that you didn't know existed. You have, you know, employee issues, client issues, you know, shit, everything. Yeah.
I mean, I want to say that the stress never goes away, but I think stress actually, it starts out as stress, but over a period of time, it just becomes what you do. You know, it's managing your work. Your work is stress.
Right.
You know, so that's what business ownership is.
Right.
You know, it's not what people think it is.
It's not the 4-hour
never,
work week. I don't sit on Instagram and.
No, I mean, you got to be very conscientious of where you spend your time, how you
Right.
spend your time, and you may have a host of problems that hit you today. You know, and your days over, you're like, I can't wait till fucking Monday. This stuff will be done, and we know on Monday there's going to be other ones.
Right.
You know, and after a while, that is your job.
Right.
You
Managing the issues.
Managing the issues, you know, and understanding what you can control and what you can't control, not stressing out over the shit you can't control, you know, and taking advantage and doing the best with what you can control.
Right.
And that's a constant with any business.
Right.
You know, and as one grows, and if you can hire, you know, managers and stuff like that underneath you, they have to have that ability to be able to manage and take ownership, you know, of whatever their department is. Because if all they're doing is the work of that department, but then you still have to manage the ownership of the stress of that department,
Right.
then you really didn't hire anything except
You
something
added
that
another responsibility.
yeah, something that you could have contracted out for a fraction of the cost, but it didn't take anything off of your plate, you know, from a stress perspective. And I think that you learn that as you go along. You know, the ones that don't learn to just realize it's part of the process, you know, it's
Right.
just, you know, are the ones that have issues, you know, or overspend. You know, you got to know the financial part you touched on. You have to know your cash flow. You have to know that. I mean, even if it's just very rudimentary, just defined just by how much money do you have in the bank. All right. Now, that's not a good indicator of what your real cash flow is, right? Because you could have receivables that exceed that, but if you've been around long enough, you know whatever that amount of money is in the bank, you know kind of where the receivables are, you know if this is good or not good.
Right.
And if it's not good, you know, you have to have, it's just like in training, we talked about the indicators. You got to have certain indicators with your business. You're like, this is on point, this is on point, this needs to work, you know, I need to focus here. And, you know, in that regard, every business is kind of the same, you know, and everybody has, you know, those people that say, oh, I have no competitors, they're full of shit. You know, you have competitors that aren't even in your industry. Time.
Planet Fitness opened up like a football throw away from me. So that's two polar opposites, my facility and Planet Fitness. It affects us.
Well, of course it's going to affect you. I mean,
And-
it's anything that occupies the time
Yes.
of your athletes is a competition for you. It doesn't have to be a training center.
Right.
Okay.
And I think that's where people miss that comparison.
It can be a fucking new video game that becomes hot, you know, and now all of a sudden they're not coming in because everybody's playing that game. That game's a fucking competitor of yours.
Boyfriends, girlfriends.
Yeah, I mean,
breakups.
yeah, exactly. I mean, are you aware of that?
Right.
Are you able to know that? Do you know the like you said before, do you know how your athletes think, you know, and perceive things? Because a lot of those things are in your control. Like I said
Right.
before, you know, you'll know like, oh man, this guy, you know, or girl, you know, they've been in a relationship it's done. They haven't figured it out yet.
They're the only ones that don't.
They
know.
haven't figured it out, but you have, and you know what's going to happen based upon seeing it happen 100 times before. The shit's going to hit the fan. They're going to disappear and not be around for a month. Well, how can you step in there, you know, and make it so they can still train? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's terrible for our business when two kids start dating out of our facility.
Yes.
And then they break up, and then we lose 2 clients over nothing.
Well, exactly. You know, and those are things that you need to think about. Like, what are the
Right.
solutions there? And they're funny to think about, but if you think about how many times that's happened, and then what the lifetime value of each client is, you know, you're talking thousands and thousands of dollars
Right.
being lost because of interpersonal communication.
Right.
You know, that
And that's where creating an environment where people want to be, regardless of a new video game, that is the biggest thing you can do. If you have a facility, you know, we have a pretty good environment, I think. You know, from what I've been told, it always looks good to the business owner.
Yeah.
But making it to where kids want to be in. Like, dude, you have no idea. Like, asking a kid when they walk in, like, fist bump or fake fist bump, like, how's your day going? Like, something as simple as asking someone how their day's going. Now that's gone from, I'm fine. And they just walk by you, and it's gone into way more conversation than I ever anticipated from that one person. But now they've had that conversation with me that creates a relationship and deepens the connection and so forth. So, yeah, creating a better environment, a better relationship with each of your clients to, even if something does happen, a breakup, they're not just going to be like, I'm done.
Well, one of the more critical things that I've said about training is the nonverbal aspect. And you talked about, you know, if you were to go back getting a psychology degree, is you can tell if you really know your clients or you really know the people that you're working with, you can tell by the way they walk in the door.
Yep.
You know, if they're on point or not. All right. Now, a couple questions, you know, a couple mannerisms, a couple statements. Maybe it's somebody you fuck with a little bit. And, you know, the way things are perceived, how they interact. Now you know for a fact.
Right.
Things are off. Now you're processing, do I have to change the program? Or is this so far off we have to sit down and talk? Or, you know, where is this as you move through that scale? And through that one training session, you may have made 15 different slight adjustments to that person's program.
Oh, yeah.
Just based upon the nonverbal feedback that you've received from warm up till the end of the training program. And one of my biggest arguments against online training is you get a video of the last rep, maybe seen once a week. That's the nonverbal communication that you have, is whatever you see in that video clip. Right. And you've already told the client, look, I don't even want to see your approach to the bar. Just film the rep.
Or your accessory movements or warm-ups.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
So you don't know what their technique's like on any of that crap. And a month ago or so, it was one of my stupid spider bar squats, but I had to put it on IGTV because I wanted to put the whole, because I fucked it up. Right. All right. I couldn't get it out of the rack and I had to reset, come step back. I'm like, I want to show, you know, here's what a fuck up looks like. Because I could have very easily just shown the set that went good, you know, not all the other shit. So here's all this other shit. Here's all the nonverbal stuff that you can see that I'm doing, all the things I had to do to get my ass back in check, the things that Ted had to do to try to get me back in check where I needed to be, the adjustments that had to be made, and then making the lift. Now, of course, most people don't want to see that shit, you know, on Instagram. But my point of the whole thing was, if you're training people and it's online and you're not seeing these things, you know, and what if it took them 3 times? And this is assuming they're using a monolift and not walking it out. But let's say they had to try, they fucked their walkout up 3 times, but they only filmed the one that they actually did right. You know what I'm saying? Now you're like, their walkout solid. So there's a lot that gets missed.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that goes into training people personally that I think expedites the process. I'm not going to be so dumb as to say that online training doesn't work.
I think it's a whole different skill set.
It's a whole different skill set. It does work, but at the same time, you know, and I've put this challenge out there many times, if you're so damn good as an online trainer, you know, let your client just let them do 5-3-1 for the next 4 months and see if they make better progress than they do with you.
Yeah.
If you're good, if you're what you say you are, they should make better progress than if they just did standard 5-3-1 right out of the book.
Right.
If they make better progress, then you're not worth $40 every 4 months.
Yeah.
You know, actually just $40.
Right.
You know, because you only have to buy it one time.
Right. I mean,
you know, and beginners and intermediates are going to make progress on anything that they do. And that's not, like I said, there's some people need the accountability, you know, and that's where the online thing comes in. It helps keep them accountable.
Right.
Some people need that. and especially with nutrition, I think that's almost everybody, but that the accountability, some people need it with the training. Some people need, with the training, but I think it still involves, speaking with them on the phone, pull back, but even that's hard, online unless you're talking to them.
And that's the biggest thing. The biggest thing for my training the last year is I've pulled back a lot more. Mm-hmm. I think everyone sees like the super hard lift on Instagram and wants that every workout. Mm-hmm. If that's every workout, you're going to probably start stalling pretty soon or get injured. Mm-hmm. Training is a lot more boring than I think people realize.
Oh, it's extremely boring.
Like, my wife loves to train, but like when she's done training, she's like, let's go home. Let's not talk. Like, let's walk the dog. Let's not talk about the workout. Like, she's out. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the online's a whole segment that I think there's certain people that can capitalize on it. But like, I see stuff with our lifters at every meet they go to, just little stuff, mm-hmm. like sitting at breakfast.
Oh yeah.
Like, my brother's a great example. He competes, and he's got like some performance anxiety that started in elementary school with low test scores and a learning disability and so forth. And man, he'll sit there and just like, oh my gosh. I'm like, you need to eat your oatmeal because you're making me a nervous wreck.
Yeah.
But you can't see that, and that's why I pulled out of doing online. I do some programs. Like, I have a friend that lives 20 mm-hmm. minutes away, but he's a pharmacist and his schedule doesn't line up, and he's like, hey, I have some equipment. Mm-hmm. I can't make it to the gym. Mm-hmm. Like, I know his mindset. I know mm-hmm. how he thinks. I know, his personality. And I think that's a bigger thing than what most, like, I don't know if people put that into a questionnaire when they take online clients.
I don't think most people have a health history.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm making a big assumption, but I highly doubt most of the people that are doing any online work are having their clients fill out a health history.
That's scary.
Which is fucked up.
Like, at least ask, like, have you been injured? What was injured? What did you do to fix it if you were injured? Mm-hmm. Like, at the minimum. Like, that's...
So what meds are you on?
Yeah.
They're on blood pressure meds, and you have them doing heart rate variable training.
Are you...
Good luck with that.
Are you enhanced? Are you
yeah.
These are pretty big differences mm-hmm. that should be up front. Mm-hmm. And, just some of the conversations I have with our people in our gym, like, make everything so much easier before they ever touch a weight. Mm-hmm. So, and that's more for the lifters. And, with the kids, like, we have kids that if you saw some of the plate loading that we do, it'd be like a 25, a 10, another 25, fives.
Yeah.
And they're like, fuck, that was heavy. What was that? I was like, that's a 25-pound PR. So go write this number down in your book. Mm-hmm. And like, was it really? Like, it doesn't look like it. I'm like, I know, you can't count.
Yeah, I know. It's easier to load, too. You don't have to pull the shit off, put other shit on.
Right.
You got another one?
Yeah. What are some of the biggest problems you see with high school strength coaches training the athletes? If any, I don't know if you're around that at all. But
so I was in a high school for 3 years, and I actually have a meeting with that high school just about like some general layout questions. Like, high school strength coaches to me are like the kids getting blamed. Like, it's now cool to bash high school strength coaches. I was in that setting. It's not their fault. Okay. It's not always their fault. Mm-hmm. There are people put in the wrong positions. Now, the school does not have $40,000 a year. Like, I know, what's his name? Monty Sparkman. Down in Texas, that's his full-time job. He's a high school strength coach, loves it. In Ohio, that does not seem to be the case. Like, it's just not a financial option for the schools. Like, I think every school in Licking County is just constantly trying to pass levies right now. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. To build a new school or to pay for the school that they already built without the money ahead of time. Mm-hmm. So to tell them, like, oh, we need to pass a levy to hire a strength coach, most people are like, what the fuck? We got a weight room. What do we need a coach for? Like, it just... And, so Ohio State's been doing some stuff in the high schools, but they're in a tough spot. I mean, anybody anybody that's ever trained 60 kids at once, and I say that loosely because you don't train 60 kids at once. You make sure bars don't end up on faces. Mm-hmm. When I was at the high school, we had it very, okay, this team, you guys are using the dumbbells. This team, you guys are doing kettlebells. This team, you guys are using the bands today. Like, you guys are using the platforms, you guys are using the racks. And don't fucking leave your station. Mm-hmm. So, and I learned that from Watts, you know, if you can minimize the amount of movement that those kids have and like keep them in their area, you know, so everything was set up on rotations, squat, jump, prehab, load, spot. Mm-hmm. Like, you have a job no matter where you're at. But the biggest problems with, I think, the high school strength coaches are just underpowered. So again, I don't think it's their fault. Maybe it's their fault for taking the job. It's a tough thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the high school is where you make the biggest impact, high school, middle school. And if I ever got a chance to do a high school or middle school program, I would jump all over it.
You do. I believe you do. You know, the coaches that had the biggest, actually the people who have had the biggest impact on my life were, you know, junior high school coaches, not strength coaches, but they didn't have strength, you know, but wrestling coaches, mm-hmm. you know, the biggest impact. Now, the wrestling was, you know, using the universal machine for whatever that was worth, but that's for me, the right age to hear the right message at the right time, you know, to be able to make profound differences. And you want to be able to put people in those positions that can do that. Right. You know, and not everybody's going to be able to do that with every kid. You know, it's be impossible, to, you know, to ever have that happen. Mm-hmm. But every teacher, you know, has, I have a activity that I have coaches and business people do, that when I mentor them, I'll have them determine their values. And part of it is going through and writing down the people that have had significant impact in their lives. It could have just been one thing that they said. Mm-hmm. One statement, you know, one gesture. Hell, it could be a book character. It could be a movie character. And
someone they can emulate their life through.
Yeah, somebody said something at one point in time that created just this 1 or 2% difference that ended up being like a 0.25% difference stacked upon a 0.25% difference every day from that moment. And then 30 years later, they're, you know, completely changed. I mean, sometimes it's just one thing being said at the right time, and a kid goes from a kid that doesn't believe in himself to, yeah, I can probably do this. Yeah. Or, you know, a kid that wants to kill himself to, maybe I do want to stay around. Right. You know, and it's just one conversation. Actually, it comes down to the thing that you actually said but didn't say, is caring about the kids. Yeah. You know, when they walk in, actually giving a fuck. Yeah. You know, and if you do that, you know, because I hear all the same stuff everybody else does. Like, man, did you see that video of that, you know, D1 strength coach doing that stupid shit that went viral? Or did you see you know, I've been in enough D1 weight rooms and collegiate weight rooms to know that I can pick that shit apart like no tomorrow. Yeah. Like, this is the worst fucking form I've ever seen in my life, or this is stupid, or this makes no sense, this doesn't have any practicality, this is the dumbest thing in the world, and go, you know, on and on and on and on. But what they don't see in that 1 minute is how good is that coach at getting all those players to work together as one unit, right? You know, and actually care about each other. Yeah. You know, Louis was a master of that, right? You know, in his own unique style. You know, getting us to give a fuck about, you know, me trying to help people in my own weight class be stronger than me. How fucked up is that? Mm-hmm. But I did, you know, then when they did the same, you know, so that's coaching, right? And that part of that ability to be able to do that, to get groups of people to work together for one common goal and to push forward like that, right? Really, you can really at that point begin to wonder, does the program matter or not? You know, if it's a sport team, a football team, or, you know, volleyball, softball, whatever it is. Take, you know, you're into the, you know, softball, right? Mm-hmm. All right. So you get a whole high school that you're working with, and they're strong as hell, but these kids they're competitive and they don't fucking work together. You know, there's always bickering and drama and shit going on. Now you got this other one over here. Strength coach sucks. All right. What he does, you know, none of it's all stupid crap. They're okay. I mean, they're not in great shape, but they all work together. They work as a team. Your ass is getting smashed.
Yeah.
Not just smashed. You're getting killed.
Dysfunction kills teams.
I mean, the score will be like fucking 40-0.
Yeah.
You're done. Now you want to be in the middle. You know, the goal is to be in the middle.
Right.
You know, and that's for most people. So you can sit there and make fun of all the technical problems, but if you're going to make fun of all the technical problems you see, at least take some time to see what kind of leader this person really is.
Yeah.
Because it could be, you know, one of the best led programs in college football or college athletics.
Right.
Because that one person, that strength coach, sees the athletes more than all the other coaches together combined, you know.
Yeah. That's the guy that got me into lifting. He was a football coach at the Y when I was in 5th and 6th grade. Would talk to him in passing, you know. Then he coached at our middle school. Got to know him then. Then after 8th grade season, I knew he took kids to the YMCA. I was like, "Hey man, all I want to do is lift. Can you teach me? Like, I know you take some kids. Will you take me to the Y and teach me how to lift?" He's like, "Yeah." So 3 days a week, he picked us up at the school and drove us to the Y and trained us. And dude, I still have lunch with him once or twice a month. Like, he's still a football coach and he still does the same thing. Like, you know, and it's interesting. About a year and a half ago, I noticed like the flip. Like, he started asking me like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" I'm like, "Oh shit." Like, and he's like, "I know." He's like, "You're stronger than I was. I don't have time. I don't care." He's like, "I got a high school full of idiot kids.
Yeah.
Like, I need to get them in and get them out." So now we've actually worked together on some stuff. And yeah, I mean, he was the guy that, like, and again, like, do I agree with everything we did to a T now? No.
No, you never will.
But it doesn't matter.
No.
He taught me, you know, the first time I ever squatted, I fell backwards. He's like, "Yeah, you look like an idiot, but we'll
fix it."
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, he taught me how to jump, like, all these things. And that's still, I probably talk to him more than anyone. Like, so that's why the high school coaches, I don't gauge how good a high school coach is by some video that maybe shouldn't have been recorded. Because I don't see the other hours that they're putting in. So I think they're most of them that I talk to, I think, are generally doing the best that they can, given the resources that they have
and the education they have. Some of them are just coaches that, hey, look, for a couple extra grand,
you get to run the weight room
for the year.
Yeah.
And they need the extra $2,000.
Yeah.
You know, so they do it.
But they can't hire somebody with the background with that.
Yes, no.
Because if you break the contract down, it's $1 an hour.
It's bad. Like, you know.
So, yeah, like, the people who are doing it, I would give more credit to the high school coaches going out and at least trying than the people that bash the high school coaches.
I will say, and I'm going to kind of go out on a limb here, if when Wendler took the job out here in London, and I don't know, I think he has said this in podcasts, he's not paid. He will not let them pay him, and that's because he wants to do things on his gym,
so he can be there.
He wants to do things on his own terms. Okay, and that's fine, you know. And he loves what he does. And when he came in a year after, they brought in a new coach, so they've pretty much been in the playoffs every year since. Which, I mean, he does a phenomenal job. If after 3 years, taking a team that was winning basically no games to being in the playoffs for 3 or 4 years, if he wanted to leverage himself, and this is speculative, you know, I'm guessing, and I can almost 99.999% say Jim would never do this.
Right.
He could leverage himself to get a salary, and the boosters would find a way to keep him.
Oh yeah,
because he's proven.
He's made a position.
He's proven the worth.
Yeah.
Right. So if it is a passion that somebody really, really wants, and they really want to do it, well then, find a way, to pay the bills, put in 3 years,
Coach for free,
and make the team better. You can coach for free and keep the same, 5-5 schedule, or 5-5. You know what I'm saying? Not win,
right?
And you have no value, because in coaching, guess what? Wins matter. You can be the best strength coach in the world, not win a game. It means fucking nothing. Best strength coach in the world, not have one injury, means fucking nothing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the job is still tied, or still tied. Yeah, it's still tied to winning.
Yeah.
And it is. So make it a winning program. They'll find the money.
Yeah.
But prove your worth.
Right.
And that's where I think a lot of people today have a really hard time. They want the worth before they prove the worth. So it's like, no, pay me the $50,000. I'll come in. I'll make your team way better. Like, I'll tell you what, why don't you make the team way better first?
Yeah.
This is if I was negotiating it. Why don't you make the team way better first? And we'll sit down and set out what those indicators are. And then you do that over 2 years. I'll not only give you the $50K, I'll give you 70.
Yeah.
But you got to do it. They won't take the deal.
Yeah, because
it's not a guaranteed $50K.
Right.
It's like they'll tell you. I do this with suppliers all the time, by the way. Yeah, I have people that not suppliers, but people try to sell you shit. Making advertisers, and you get it too. I'm sure. All the time.
Yeah,
they can make you guarantees all the fucking time. Flip it back on them. Say, so you're guaranteeing that I'm going to get a 15% return. And how long? 60 days. So you guarantee in 60 days I'm going to have 15% return. Cool. How about we do this? You send me the bill, net 90, and if you do what you say you're going to do, I'll pay you 20% more than what you're asking.
Yeah.
But if you don't,
overpay or back pay.
Yeah. But if you don't do it, I'll pay you nothing.
Right.
Oh, I can't do that. Why? You just guaranteed it.
Right.
So now it's not really a guarantee. And they backpedal, I need to check with my superiors. I fuck with people on this all the time, by the way. It's fun for me. Because nobody in 22 years has ever done it.
No.
Nobody. I'm like, well, then don't guarantee it, dumb fuck. Just say this is a service that you offer.
Right.
And that's what you do. And you'll try your best, and those are the type of people that might get my business. But they're going to start throwing out guarantees. You better be really fucking good and be willing to bill it. On a back end,
yeah,
and then be fine.
What I tell people now, well, I'm sure you get this too. Well, I need to open a facility. I need my own gym. All right, cool. Why? Because I like training people. Cool. You can do that at a gym. You can go work at a place. You can make a home gym. You don't have to make that your livelihood, because it changes the aspect of it.
Well, it's not your livelihood. As soon as you open a gym, running a gym is your livelihood,
right?
Not training people,
right? And so I ask people, like, why do you need to run a business to train people? And if there was something like what we have now in our area, I probably wouldn't have had a business, because I was training. That's it. That's my passion, training. But I had to develop something to live out my passion. So I think that's there. I wanted to make a bigger impact. I was training 9 hours a day, something like that. You can only train so many hours a day. Now we're seeing more people. I have coaches, carrying our message. More people, more voices, a lifting group that, portrays our message, so that's bigger than just me. So I just think people, I worked at Denison for 3.5 years. Watts gave us 2 pairs of shorts, some Nikes, got some Nike shoes one year. That was awesome. Like we were like, oh shit. like any of the old sports gear that nobody took the year before. Like we had so much Denison gear. But we all legitimately wanted to be there to learn to be better coaches. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
My last half year, I was just training the men's basketball team. It was 5:30 or 6:30 in the morning because I live 3 miles from Denison, and he was a half hour with a newborn. So he was like, I will take you to this conference. I'm not even going to pay for you, but you'll have a place to sleep. But I just need you to train men's basketball. I was like, all right, cool, man, whatever. Mm-hmm. But so for 3 years, I was unpaid, just being around people. That's why I went to Westside. Westside wasn't I'm going to get strong as fuck. This is the goal. I said, oh, I've never been there. So, and I know coaches come from all over the world. So if people are traveling the whole world to talk to this guy, I can drive down 70. If I don't like it, I just quit going. Mm-hmm. And he talked the first day, and I'm like, what the fuck? And it was like being at Denison the first day. I was like, I need to go read. Mm-hmm. I don't know what just happened, but I don't know anything. Like, so I think more people should intern or volunteer coach, whatever it is, to get the experience to prove their value that they think they're worth. Mm-hmm. And you'll learn a lot more volunteering than you will once you're paid.
Oh, most definitely.
Like
most definitely, because the coaches that I've spoken to and that have interns compared to employees, like the employees, they're paying, mm-hmm. right? They're paying to do a job, and they have to, help the employees become better.
Right.
All right. But they're paying, you know what I'm saying? Where the intern is, basically, in some cases, the interns are paying them. Mm-hmm.
Pay to work.
Yes, they are paying to work. So now there's a vested interest that I have to give, or whoever has to give,
right?
That value back, from that standpoint. So most definitely, I mean, then they'll find out, if they keep their mind open, what they don't know. Mm-hmm. And it's trust me, you've already discovered this. It's way more than you think it is. Yeah. The more you're around this shit, the more you realize you don't know a fucking thing.
Yeah.
You might have a clue, but everything that you do is still your best educated guess. And that educated part gets convoluted because some people just say, fuck it, I don't need to read anything. Mm-hmm. I know enough. Well, guess what? Your educated guess is going to suck compared to the person that's been doing and reading and talking to other people for 20 some years. Yeah. And that's how much you care about your kids.
Yeah.
That's what it tells me.
That's like, I texted you a while back, 3 or 4 months ago, because you were just saying, like, outside of super training and science and sport training and one other book, was it Fitness, Facts and Fallacies, or one of those, mm-hmm. like one of the main books. You're like, somebody asked you, outside of those books, what should I be reading? And you're like, I don't read them. Mm-hmm. Like, read those. And man, like, I'm rereading super training.
Yeah, I mean, you got let's say you got super training, science and practice of strength training, and then maybe the red Soviet book, which skips my mind right now. You start with the Soviet book. It's a little bit easier. Then you go into science and practice. But, I mean, super training, I go back through that probably every few years. But I got notes in the margins. I got notebooks. I got notes. So it's easier for me to go back to because I just have to read the margins and the notes, and it all kind of comes back in through. But, I mean, I've literally been told, I read these 3 books last month. What should I be reading this month? I'm like, whoa, what the fuck did you just say? This is, whoa. You didn't, probably one of the greatest minds that I know in strength and conditioning is the thinker, James Smith. I mean, far and away, one of the most intelligent people I know. And if you ask him the number of books that he's read, training related, it's like 6. You know, it's like the Soviet manuals and stuff like that, you know, Verkhoshansky and those type of things. He'll tell you what they are. But he knows them. And then he knows the references to them.
Right.
You know, and he knows them.
Knows
and he
them
knows
inside
that,
and out.
You know, so he studied. He didn't read.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a difference between the two.
Right.
What you got?
Okay. Any thoughts on preventing cortisol and stress spikes from training while trying to drop weight?
I haven't tried dropping weight in a while. I've gained 70 pounds since Westside. When I was bodybuilding, can you read that back again?
Yeah, let me see. Oh, hold on. Any thoughts on preventing cortisol and stress spikes from training while trying to drop weight?
Be fucking intuitive. Be very aware of, be realistic of what your goals are and how many variables you're trying to change and the rest you're getting and your outside factors, your external factors. Maybe you can elaborate more on that.
Well, training is a stress.
That's the thing. I
You
mean,
know,
every we were talking about that today. Everything is a stress.
Yeah,
So
training is a stress, and it's a massive stress.
losing weight's a stress.
Yeah, so it's, you know, just I think you kind of nailed it, just managing the expectations, but managing you know what, people, I mean, here's the thing. The goal is to lose weight. Is that it? And to maintain muscle mass, so like a bodybuilding, like cutting down. Is that the objective?
I mean, there wasn't much context, but you can go with
Okay,
that.
I think that's kind of, say the goal is, you know, just to diet down and try to maintain as much lean body mass as possible. I am under the belief that you can gain lean body mass if you are emancipated to begin with, or if you lost lean body mass in the off season, or other variables.
Right.
So if muscle memory type of thing. Putting on new muscle mass is going to be a very hard, difficult, if not impossible process to be able to do. So it's, I don't, I'm really big on the, especially with training related things, the indicators. You know, it's what is your expected fat loss that you think that you can lose? You know, are you going to try to lose, you know, 1% body fat a week and kill yourself, or are you going to manage it and try to lose 0.5% every 2 or 3 weeks? Like 0.5% body fat every 3 weeks for somebody starting under 20 that's a manageable level, you know, and that's going to be maybe at a 1.5 or 2 pound drop per week, you know, which is a slow drop. You know, I think the slower, the better for managing that.
For stress, yeah.
Now, J.M. Blakely disagreed, you know, when I spoke to him, and he said, fuck it, lose it all in a month. So take the big hit, you know what I'm saying? And he's got a point.
Because
like,
it's done.
Yeah, take the huge hit, right? And it's going to be a huge hit. Take it all at once, and then it's done. And then put the muscle back on that you lost and kind of work from there. So, but that's mentally going to be way, way harder for most people to determine.
Yeah,
but
I think you mentally have to be a lot tougher to go that route.
But if you have indicators that you're tracking to be able to let you know if you're on point or not on point, and then you're not freaking out when something goes wrong, you know, or if you get ahead of schedule, you know, you can have throw in a cheat meal. If you get behind schedule, yeah, there's no cheat meal. You may actually have to up the cardio or drop the calories a little bit. That's where I would go with. I mean, you're talking about cortisol, so you're talking about hormones, and you know, the management of hormones. There's, you know, this is a far more complicated process than, you know, I'm going to do a few less sets and it's going to help me control my cortisol levels.
Right.
You know, you might do a few less sets, then go home and, you know, your kids drive you fucking insane for no reason, and there your cortisol just went through the roof. So you managed it.
Or your dog shit on
in
the couch.
gym. Yeah, something sets you off just driving home.
Right.
Fucker in front of you can't drive the speed limit. You know, now you're pounding your fist against the steering wheel. There's your, you know, so it's a daily thing. It's not a training thing. You know, so.
That answers it, though.
Yeah.
This could be a good one to end on. Best life advice you could give to a college student? You guys could both answer that one.
I was never a traditional college student, so I mean, I took 2 years off after high school and thought my life was going to be in a warehouse throwing boxes. So, and then I took, like I said, I've been taking classes part-time that whole time since then. So, best advice for...
I mean, what's your advice with the route you went? I don't know if there's going to be many people following that exact...
Yeah, I'm sure there won't be.
But there could be.
Ooh. For best advice for a life advice for a college age student, I would say the faster you can live on your terms, like realistically live on like what makes you happy, other than like the obvious, oh, more money would make me happy, but like realistically, like what you enjoy to be around. I think people really do a lot of things that make them personally miserable. Like, I know if I had to sit at a desk for 9 hours, I don't know. Like, I would rather do warehouse work than sit in a desk. So I don't know. The sooner you can find that, the sooner you can find yourself and find what is driving you, if that makes sense. And learn from, if you have any interest, outlying interest. Like, for me, lifting's always been a part of what I do. So I would talk to bodybuilders, endurance athletes, anybody that was in fitness when I didn't have a game plan, just like personal trainers, even the ones like at the Y that they're trainers, but they're more just like showing you, here's our machines. Like, how do you get started in this? I just talked to anybody that would pick up a phone. So, and I think a lot of people now are afraid to do that. And a lot of people... The Instagram and Facebook messages say thank you and please, and like the communication, I think, can open a lot of doors if people will go step out of. It's very uncomfortable to reach out to people and say, like, I remember I reached out to you for a school project, and I was like, you have no reason to talk to me, but like, would you let me talk to you on the phone or email you, and can you answer a few questions? And you were like, yeah, whatever, like, here's a time. From that call, I learned something. So talking to different people, now I talk, like I said, I have a client who's been with me 3 years, and his son was with me 5 years before that. I learned from some of my clients. I learned from my kids. I learned, my clients about business, about this. So whatever your interests are, and I don't want to say follow your passion. Your passion has to make money. So, I think that there's a lot of people in fitness that maybe they shouldn't be. I think maybe they'd be happier just going to a gym after work or building a small home gym for themselves. But, and I'm just using that example because that's what most of this talks about. Like, I don't think everyone should coach. I don't think everyone should coach football, 10-year-old football. The guy who works for me, he still coaches. He's coaching his kid. He loves, I know when he's not at the gym, he is coaching. So he's coaching while he's not coaching. So that makes me happy to be surrounded by people that genuinely just have a passion for coaching. So I would say that, and don't limit yourself. Don't say like my wife was awesome because she is from Pennsylvania, went to Denison in Ohio, then did clinical rotations in Albuquerque, New Mexico, California, like wherever. She was like, wherever. I want to go other places and meet people and see different points of view. And I think that was, I admire her a lot for that, being able to step out and we go out in public. I'm done talking by the weekend. Her, on the other hand, she'll carry on a conversation with our server and everything. Like, she's very... So it's nice to see her expanding out. She's a doctor. She could be like, this is how things are. This is just being open to things. I think a lot of people, and maybe it's social media, maybe everything feels more trapped in, more larger than it is, more of an impact than it is. Reach out to people and talk to people about different things that even if it's a little bit of an interest, like I got into this because my mom was a teacher, but I knew there's no way in hell I was teaching English, or I failed math 10th grade. I knew there was no way I was going to be a teacher. So, but watching her, I was like, this is what I need to do. I need to, this is awesome. So when I stepped back, a couple of years ago, I was like, I literally became a teacher just in my own way. So there's things I asked my mom about. She taught for 20 or 25 years. I asked her, like, hey, with the group, like, what would you do with a kid like this? So whatever, if you have 5 things that interest you, talk to different people in those fields and find a way to navigate it. And I was guilty about not asking people for help when I was younger. Like when I got to Denison, I literally felt the difference in training athletes and bodybuilders was, athletes do power cleans and snatches. That's it. And day one, Watts threw a sheet at me and goes, football teams out there's 65 of them. You got to do a dynamic warm-up, hip mobility, and something else. And he walked away. I said, what the fuck did this guy just say? And so I had to get one of the student interns. I was like, I'm told to do this. Can you help me? Mm-hmm. But getting around him opened up my eyes to other coaches and see how other things were done outside of basically a bodybuilding background. So.
Okay, so what was the question again?
Best life advice you could give a college student?
Best life advice I could give a college student. All right, when I was still competing, my best squat was 940, I believe. And when I did that, I was at Westside, and at that time, that was the second or third highest squat ever at Westside. And with the exception of Matt Dimmel, who died like 1 or 2 years before, I was the only one, I believe at the time, maybe Tom Waddle, that had done it or was going to attempt it, more or less. And at the meet that I did it, I remember being in the warm-up room, and visualization's always been a big part, and mental preparation. And I mean, I did this thousands of times in my head beforehand. And it's keep in mind at the time there were only still a handful of people that were squatting over a grand actively. Some were no longer in the sport, but Louis was paying everybody $1,000 that could squat 1,000. So now he won't do that. He doesn't do that shit anymore, because it's, everybody should basically squat 1,000 according to him. And, so I remember sitting in the back, and mentally I never had a hard time getting to my zippy place or whatever people want to call it. But I remember talking to Louis beforehand, and I had a hard time setting shit up because my hips were more fucked back then than I thought they were. So it was a shake fest most of the time. And Louis told me that, it's 900 pounds. I'm like, okay, I get that. I'm not a fucking idiot. And we competed in usually the same meets. He says, no, I need you to fucking listen to me and pay attention. And I'm like, all right, whatever. So I listened to him. He says, it's 900 fucking pounds. I'm like, I understand that. I'm ready for it. It's not a big deal. He says, no, listen to me again. It's going to fucking be heavy on your back. When you stand up with it, it's going to feel heavy as fuck. It's going to feel heavier than anything you've ever done before. And I said, jokingly, well, it is heavier than anything I've done before, and even heavier because we weren't doing Circumax stuff back then. Mm-hmm. And I don't believe I squatted anything over 750 in the gym before that, at that time. This is the way that we trained. And he said, just all I want you to understand is you're going to stand up with it. It's going to be heavy. It's going to feel heavy. It's going to feel heavy as fuck, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. All right. And I'm like, okay, I get this. kind of. So I go through and I get ready and, you know, get to the bar, get under the bar. You know, I'm in my state, you know, where you don't kind of know, you're in your void state. And I stood up and I came out of my void state real fucking quick because it was fucking heavy.
Reality hit.
And I'm like, oh, fuck. This is fucking heavy. And, you know, my shaking starts. And I remembered him saying, you know, it's heavy, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. So it actually came back into my head. You know, so I cracked my knees and sat back and stood up in a half second. And it was easy as fuck. Rack it in there. I was like, holy fuck, you know, you could have squatted 980 and, you know, that shit goes super easy. It was one of those lifts wherever you go in the bathroom to take your shit off, take a piss, and you're in the bathroom and people are like, dude, that was fucking ridiculous. It was a piss lift, man. It was, you know, people, only some people are going to know what I'm talking about, but you know what I'm talking about.
You got to get your gear off.
Yeah, I mean, people are telling you, holy fuck, dude, and you don't even know who they are. You're like, wow, that must have really been easy, you know? And so my advice would be, you know, when it comes to life, and I've had a lot of adversity, more so than some, but not as much as others. Life it's fucking heavy. You know, there's times that are really fucking heavy, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. So no matter what you do, what you pursue, or what avenue that you try to go down, don't ever expect the road to be easy. Don't ever expect the road to be simple. Don't ever expect it to be light. It's going to be heavy, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. Mm-hmm. If you remember that, then you'll be able to get through the adversity. You'll be able to get through the storms. You'll be able to come out on the other side. If you expect that it's always going to be easy, you're going to be in for a real rough ride, and you're going to be getting 3 red lights. You're going to be missing a lot of lifts, and you're going to be getting hurt a lot. You know, so understand it's going to be heavy. Get tight and enjoy the fucking ride. Because if you do that, that's where you're going to find the happiness. We done?
Yep.